Amanda, would you like to take roll call, please?
Yes, Vice Chair Patricia Trouth,
Here.
Chris Duncan,
Here.
James Gross,
Here.
Glenn Johnson,
Present.
Ron Medic,
Here.
Paul Templin,
Here.
and David Thiele.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first of all, I would just like to welcome our two new commissioners, Commissioner Meddock and Commissioner Templin. So, welcome. Okay, so let's move on to oral communications. Amanda, do we have any oral communications this evening?
We do. We have one speaker tonight. We have Christine Schindler.
For being here in support of this commission. So just some informational things. If you did not know, we have 2 chances each month for bike education. It's called a city cycling class. It's 3 hours long. I would encourage you to come. If you can't get into the class because it's full of teenagers, just let us know, let Nick Buck know, and you can get in the class. I'd love you to see what it is that we're sharing with mostly right now teenagers and parents, but also important for adult riders and non-riders. In the interim, I have this sheet that I'm going to give you. It's very important for us to educate our riders, but also very important for us to educate our motorists. So we all have a part in making safer streets. We all need to slow our roll, pay attention to each other, and look out for each other. So I sound kind of preachy, but this stuff drives me crazy when I hear someone got hit. Like this morning, a dear friend, I just want to wrap everybody in bubble pack. EcoFest, I want to invite you to EcoFest. It's going to be the 1st of June this year at Encinitas Community Park. If you haven't been to it before, it's a fantastic event. You can ride your bike to it and have a free bike valet. You can walk to it. This year it's at Encinitas Community Park, first time at that location as far as I know. Cyclivia Encinitas. Have you guys been to this? Do you love it? Open streets. Closing it to cars, open it up for everything else. Skateboard, chalk art, running, scooting, skating, biking, strollers, you got the idea. Wheelchairs, canes, anything and everything. Super fun. This year is our 5th year. Nick Buck, kudos to him for organizing this event. Nicole Wright is also involved now. I think it's a super fun event. I'm very excited that we're doing it. I'm hoping now maybe it's got enough traction that we can move it off Coast Highway in Encinitas to other locations in the coming years. It's just a super fun time. So thanks for what you do.
Well, thank you, Christine. Okay, we'll move into our first action item, and that is to select a new chair for the commission. So let's entertain nominations.
Commissioner Johnson here. I nominate Patricia Trouth.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. I'm not real familiar with this. Do we move right into voting? Amanda?
Unless there is another nomination,
Oh, yeah,
yes, you can
okay.
go ahead.
Sorry. Any other nominations? Okay,
Yeah.
hearing none. So I think now we move into voting. Okay. Amanda, do you want to take the roll call on that, please? Do you want me to do it on the, yeah. Okay, the motion has passed. That said, we need a vice chair, and I would like to nominate Commissioner Johnson.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you.
Verbally.
Sure.
Patricia Trouth,
Yes.
Paul Templin. Yes. David Thiele. Yes. Chris Duncan,
Yes.
James Gross.
Yes. Excuse me, Chair, I'm sorry that I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
The fact that you started the meeting as a vice chair and there was no guarantee that you would get the chair position, selection of a vice chair was not on the agenda.
Oh. Okay.
Because you were the vice chair when we started the meeting. So I do recommend that we move selection of the vice chair to the next meeting, and we'll add it to the agenda.
Okay.
Unless something happens that you have to leave, then we have to choose a temporary chair. But otherwise, the vice chair selection was not on the agenda.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Abe. Okay, so the next agenda item would be the work plan discussion. And the way that I would like to focus on this discussion is to first go through the existing work plan that we had, the draft plan that we've discussed a couple months back. And each of us, I know some of the work plan is staff generated and some of it was commission generated. So what I'd like to do for the two new commissioners is just go through that list and kind of explain a little bit more about what each of those potential projects were. And then after we do that, then I'd like to have a discussion about what the city council asked us to do, what they tasked us to do. Okay? So, and then if we get far enough along in this, then we'll prioritize the 5 or 10 projects. But we do have 2 more meetings to, make these decisions. So we have next Monday, the 21st of April, and then we have May 22nd, and then we have the joint meeting with City Council on the 28th, just so everyone knows. Okay, so if we could, the draft work plan was in our packet, and Abe, I'd like to just get clarification. So those items that were staff generated, do you think that is something that doesn't include our 5 or 10 different projects, correct? Those would be separate?
Yes. So might be a good idea that now that we have Jill here, might be a good idea for also our 2 new commissioners to kind of give a little bit of background of how this happened and what this is. This is the first year that we're doing this. So I asked Jill to be here tonight. I'd like to introduce Jill Bankston, our Director of Engineering. Now that we have her here, if okay with you, Chair, I'd like Jill to give us a little bit of a rundown of why we're here and what this is and how we want the commission to kind of help us on council with the work plan.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, Abe. Thanks, Patricia. So we started an effort last year to kind of bring this commission in alignment with our municipal code. So the municipal code lays out that each of our commissions will have a work plan. But the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission functions just a little bit differently from all of the other commissions. We're kind of right in between the Planning Commission and then, say, the Senior Commission or the Youth Commission, things like that. So traditionally, the way this commission has functioned is when staff has new striping plans or new traffic projects or capital projects, we would present those to this commission, and they would provide their feedback, and then we would share that with City Council. But like I said, the Muni Code said that we're supposed to have a work plan. So we started a series of meetings last year to try and put together a work plan. And then the role of staff is to kind of help you through that work plan, recognizing, though, that City Council is the one who directs our work. And then the way you guys are a little bit different from the Senior Commission and the Youth Commission is you guys aren't traffic engineers, so you can't do a stop sign warrant and a traffic signal warrant or a speed survey or anything like that. So a lot of the ideas or things that you guys would like to do is something that staff would have to do. But our staff already has a work plan that's dictated to us by City Council. So I just wanted to kind of remind the commission that we're going to put together this work plan and then bring it forward to City Council, and then they'll be able to provide us feedback on the work plan, and we'll kind of figure out how we move forward from there. Because if there are items on that list that require a study or something larger, we'll have to figure out how that gets funded. If it's something smaller that staff can manage and include inside their work plan that's already funded, then those would be easy. Those would be like stop sign warrants, signal warrants, speed surveys, things like that. That's easy for staff to do. But if we're looking for bigger projects or bigger changes, that's something that we'll have to talk about. So I just wanted to preface this conversation by sharing that.
Thank you.
And with regards to your question / comment, Chair, the way we drafted started drafting the work plan last year with like 3-4 meetings with the commission was that we categorized high-level category traffic items that the commission reviews. Those are the first piece of the table, as you can see on your screens. These are higher-level general items, matters directly assigned to commission by the council. No matter what we put in our work plan as a commission, this will always be added whenever council says at any meeting during the year, hey, take this to commission, pick up their brain, bring us back their recommendation. This will be added to the work plan. Items that require council approval. We have multiple items in our Muni Code that do require council approval: a stop sign, a speed survey, a new signal, a roadway changing direction or becoming a one-way, major temporary time-limited parking. All these things that do require council or permit parking zone that require council approval automatically becomes a commission reviewable item that we will bring here before that. Our Safe Routes to School project, our annual striping modification project, Commissioner Mehta brought it up at a previous council meeting. This has always been the practice. We always bring it to the commission. Striping plans, major changes, they get reviewed by the commission. Then they go to council. And the requests that we receive from public at the commission for evaluations, if supported by the commission, will get added to our work plan. These are general items, not project specific. The second chapter of the table, the second piece of this is projects that commission at its previous 3-4 meetings discussed together. They considered these as their priorities. As we all heard, council wanted a shorter list, a prioritized list. And then obviously some of these are off the list, some of these are already happening in the works, and there might be some new items added. So this is why we're here today. Next meeting, as Chair mentioned, we can continue this. We have a full-on agenda next week. I just want to mention that we will not have a full meeting. This meeting is specifically, that's why our agenda this meeting is a little different. We don't have our standard sheriff's update. We don't have our mobility manager update. This is specifically for the work plan discussions. Next week, we can continue this. And in May, obviously, we can continue on 22nd before the 28th. But on the May commission meeting, I wouldn't count on that much because we have to post the agenda for the joint meeting probably right then and there. So there wouldn't really be that much time to change the whole work plan on the 22nd. So I would focus on this meeting, and if we have to, on the next one.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Okay, so going through this list, I'm looking at the 24.7, 8, and 9. Those were all staff generated. So are those also like projects that are kind of like the ones that are up above that?
Good question. Let's just start with a simpler one. The AB 43, this was already reviewed by the commission, council approved, so this one's done. It can be taken off the list. We now have an adopted program that's blessed by the city council. The citywide signal timing optimization, we just started the whole evaluation process, feasibility, possibility of hiring a consultant. We do know that this is something that the new council likes a lot. Making our corridors run more efficiently, better signal coordination citywide, more optimized timing, better green waves along our corridors. So I personally do like this item, and I think we will pursue this. We haven't had a clear, clean direction from council with regards to any budget allocation to hire a consultant on this or spending funding on improving our infrastructure, but I am very, very optimistic that this is something that council will provide us direction and funding as needed for. With regards to El Camino cycle track, we did win a grant for this, HSIP Cycle 12. We did receive a grant for improving El Camino Real at the Santa Fe intersection and north of it, where we had the unfortunate fatality. We are planning on taking this bringing this to the commission, possibly next week, if not in May, and then to council afterwards. That would be an opportunity. So if this is on the commission's work plan, or if it's not, the fact that we have a grant on it, you will hear about it.
Okay, thank you. But, it sounds like it's pretty far along, so it wouldn't necessarily be one of those 5 to 10 projects that we're proposing? Or?
Either way, you'll hear about it. So if you want to send 3 to 5 projects to council as your work plan, I wouldn't count on that, because this is already there. So
Got it. Okay.
unless you don't have that many projects and you want to use this, but I doubt that you wouldn't have.
I think we're going to have plenty of projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Then let's see. What I'd like to do is just kind of go through the other projects. And you can see on the side, the Cs mean they were commissioner-based. And if each commissioner could kind of just talk a little bit about the projects that they were recommending on the work plan. So preparation of a collision and citation portal, it says it's commissioner-based, so I'm just wondering if it perhaps, is that? No? Yeah. Yeah, okay. No one has a recollection of that one, I take it.
And in this case, should we just, for expediency, should we just do a quick vote, verbal vote, like to keep it or not? Because I think right now the point is to try to trim this list, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there's no support of any of these, if they're that clear, straightforward, we all vote it down. I don't know if it's majority vote or what, but that's a recommendation.
Okay. I'd like to still kind of go through it kind of briefly so that we can get everybody kind of up to speed. We haven't looked at this in probably 3, 4, 5 months. Yeah. So, okay, so is that anyone? That's okay. Let's move on to the next one. So 2410, consider opportunities to fund safer infrastructure through automated enforcement.
Yeah, I can take that. That's mine. So this goes to the idea of just really kind of a couple challenges we have among the city. One is, of course, being able to fund safe projects and safe infrastructure. Budget is always a concern. How can we raise the money in order to save, to build more safe infrastructure? This idea is an idea that's adopted really around the world, which is automating traffic enforcement. Whether it's red light running or speed cameras, that where you take part of the budget that's raised from the automated enforcement, and that leads directly into safe infrastructure projects. Ideally, that again gets over our biggest hurdle to building safe infrastructure, which is generally a budget one. Why is this needed? Just a couple of examples that could be used. When we declared the state of emergency after the fatality on El Camino Real involving the child cyclist, Sheriff Collis, who isn't here today, but when all the deputies got together and actually did the speed raids, his comment was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically we could write as many tickets as we could hold the gun out and get someone, pull them over, give them a ticket, and then write another ticket. So naturally, there's a big speeding challenge in the city. Traffic is a very interesting thing culturally. We sort of allow people to break the rules, and we're not quite sure if we should actually enforce them sometimes. We saw this in the city council back in 2021 when we took out traffic cameras in the name of equity, where we said people couldn't afford to pay the traffic violations that were happening when people were running red lights. And so this is a very heated topic in a way. It's not necessarily political in that both sides tend to not like it. It doesn't buy you a lot of votes when you start giving out a lot of tickets. But it's an area that if we have a challenge with our budget, we can absolutely overcome that by starting to enforce the laws of traffic safety. So yeah, that's my pitch.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is citywide lead pedestrian interval implementation. Oh, that's staff. Yeah, okay. Do you want to just give a brief overview of that?
Yes, this is a $1.2 million grant that we received from the state, upgrading all of our traffic signals citywide to brand new state-of-the-art controllers, and also improving the majority of our crosswalks at ramps, and we are also adding additional bike signage and bike symbols. Our ex-commissioner Wong recommended that to be added, so that's also in the grant and in the contract. We hired the contractor. They have started. We received the controllers, and we're in the process. I think later this month we'll start upgrading our cabinets. But commission will hear progress reports from the project manager as we go along.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next is Vulcan Trail Safe Route.
This isn't mine, but I can speak on it as the representative from Leucadia. This is just something we've continued. We do have the dirt route now, which has the parking as a barrier on Vulcan, which is very nice. We've also reduced under the AB 43 speed limit on Vulcan. But you still basically have people walking on a dirt route. And, this was a push to try to get the funding in order to build something safer and just an area that, you have a lot of people running, walking, biking in this area. And just unless you're going to walk on that dirt trail, you have no protection at all from the cars.
Yeah, no, this is, I think, a real good project that needs to stay on the list. Okay, improve response of signals to bikes. I think this was...
This is, Chair, also something that's happening. It's included in the LPI, correct?
Oh, okay. Okay, then the next is policy on bike parking at commercial businesses. I think this is a noteworthy one. It doesn't sound like it would be a real costly type of project. And, we do have more and more cyclists plus the electric bikes that people are using. So I think having, some kind of project where we're going to have strategic locations where we have bike racks and whatnot, I think would be appropriate. So I would suggest we keep this. Do I have any comments?
Comment on that one is whether or not e-bikes should be on the sidewalks or on the street in business areas. Regular bikes, of course, can use the sidewalks, but the e-bikes are so much faster that we might have to have a policy on that.
Yeah, I think this one is really focusing on bicycle parking. Yeah. So would you support something like that? I think what you're talking about might be a separate type of project.
Bicycles and sidewalks, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. just trying to package them into a project. This is something I think we could move forward rather quickly to City Council. So unless someone really doesn't support it, I'd like to keep it on the list. Okay, the next potential project is make new Encinitas more pedestrian-friendly mid-block crosswalks. Okay. Let's see, just reading what was on here. Identify opportunities to enhance pedestrian safety and accessibility along El Camino Real. The one at Via Molina and Mountain Vista, seems to work pretty well. So I'd like to keep this on the list as well, unless someone has a real concern about it. Paul?
Well, I just
Excuse
don't,
me.
I mean, I live in that area. I just don't see any real value of putting a lot of crosswalks
Mid-block?
I mean, I drive by there all the time. I just don't see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so, I mean, as a resident of that area, I just kind of don't see a lot of people walking in that area, and
Okay.
I think they could just walk down to the nearest crosswalk.
Okay, so appreciate the feedback, and that may be a much lower priority type item as we kind of go through all these different projects. Okay, the next is Birmingham Drive pedestrian mobility, and that was my project. I represent Cardiff. There's along Birmingham, there are different areas where we don't have a continuous crosswalk, and so the recommendation here is to put a crosswalk at Legay and Birmingham. Okay, any feedback on that?
I think that's a good. I think that's a good project. I rode over there and took a look, and the sidewalk disappears on the westbound side of the street.
Yeah.
So it would be very good for the pedestrians to be able to have a proper crosswalk there.
I agree.
It's also a slight right turn. I'm not sure if it's going to be necessary to put lights on a crosswalk there. It would be interesting to see what your department thinks about that.
Okay, well, so that one will stay on the list. This next one is also mine. It's Santa Fe and Crest, and it's to evaluate the feasibility and potential of designing a quick build roundabout at the intersection. So currently, we do have a stop sign, and that seems to be working pretty well, and we've received some feedback from the community that they like it. My concern was, I use that road all the time, and there are, because you have everyone stopping in both directions, whether there are pedestrians there or not, that's why I was suggesting a roundabout, because then the vehicles could slow down and go through the roundabout and not have to stop completely. So I think it makes the vehicles a little bit more efficient. So I'd like to get some feedback on that.
Okay, I'll claim some of the blame for those stop signs, because the commission voted to put the stop signs in there now rather than taking 3 or 4 years to put in a roundabout. Sometimes the best is the enemy of the good, as I think the rule. That, as a roundabout at that location, that has some difficulties because of line of sight. You have uphill traffic going both ways. Mm-hmm. And it's not clear that a quick build roundabout has a good flat area unless you do some serious grading on that, which makes it not a quick build roundabout.
Okay, well.
So I'd suggest that we at least do remove the quick build part of it, and maybe make it part of the the Santa Fe Drive project that the council has asked us to look into.
So if I understand correctly, Abe, correct me if I'm wrong, The roundabout was originally in the project. It was part of the project, and because of budget, it was taken out. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. So what this would propose is to paint the roundabout as opposed to the full roundabout. So,
Yeah, that would be a quick build roundabout like the one they have on Quail Gardens Drive at Ecky Ranch Road. But even just slapping that on that area, there's some concerns about visibility. I have concerns because I live in that area. I live in the Encinitas Ranch area, and I don't know whether we can spring for a full roundabout and fix some of the grade problems and the line of sight issues, or whether we just put in a quick build and clap.
well, I think what we're talking about right now is a quick build because we didn't have the budget to put in, the full-fledged one. So I'm just looking for support on this.
Yeah, I supported the roundabout initially. I know we agreed on the stop sign as kind of the immediate fix. I guess the bigger question is, how realistic is it based on the budget, as well as now everything else going on with Santa Fe? I mean, is that whole thing, maybe this gets included in that reassessment of the rest of Santa Fe project?
I mean, the west side, the project at the moment is considered complete. Whatever revisions happen to that, that's not yet decided. East side, there hasn't been any work. I don't think we've gone out to bid on that anymore. Yeah, the east side is at the moment idle. It's not going forward. With regards to the roundabout, what we did at Quail and Ecky Ranch was about, I believe, close to 200,000. And that's something that if council directs us, it's feasible, it's doable. It needs its own, design legwork and preliminary evaluation about the geometry and the shape and the islands and stuff. But again, this can very well be a commission item. You review the design. If we have to hire a consultant, if we have to do it in-house, like the Quail and Ecky Ranch, we did it in-house. This Santa Fe, we very well might be able to do it in-house. We just bring you the concept, you review, we design it, council approves, and then we go hire somebody to build it. And then because council blessed your work plan, when it comes to funding, obviously they'll be more open to it.
Yeah, I support it.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody else want to go ahead?
No?
I just wanted to say that I wanted to echo a little bit of what Commissioner Johnson mentioned. I think in the first place, a quick build roundabout, to my way of thinking, especially at that location, but probably at many locations, is not a good idea. For anybody who was at the last city council meeting or viewed it by video and saw the presentation by the former traffic commissioner from Carlsbad, Steve Linke, we saw that one roundabout is the most dangerous intersection in Encinitas. That's El Portal. And that on Leucadia Boulevard, those two roundabouts that are in existence both have 3 times as many accidents as the stop sign one on Hygeia. So I don't think it's a given that roundabouts are safer, or they certainly do provide a better flow of traffic, no question. And I've lived in a country that had a lot of roundabouts for 10 years. I'm very used to roundabouts in Europe, and they're great if they're done properly. But if they're not done properly, they can be very dangerous. And unfortunately, in North County, they're pretty dangerous. The one at State Street in Carlsbad is terrible. So I wouldn't even consider putting a quick build roundabout at the top of a summit that has very poor line of sight in 2 directions.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah. I would agree. My concern is the crossing crest, north and south. And I think, in a high traffic time, there's just no way to cross the street. And I think that was my major concern when we were advising on the point of the stop sign. And so I think we should consider carefully. And I do agree that if you're going to put in a roundabout, it's got to be something that slows people down. obviously people have to know how to use it, but the first concern is people know that they have to enter and exit, and they have to go around and slow. But I do think the crossing there will be very difficult, either walking or riding a bike. Yeah, if it's free-flowing between the times of 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, or 9, and in the late afternoon or early afternoon when the kids are getting out of SDA, for sure.
Okay, well, it sounds like we are kind of have a mixed group of comments on this. So, I mean, that can be a much lower priority. My concern was I really, initiated the stop sign and really supported it because it is because of the shape of the roadway and, just seeing people kind of struggle as they're trying to cross. But I did have concerns, particularly when school is in session and the cars are backing up in either direction. So, something that we should keep in mind as well. Okay, going to the next one, 2418, implementing safer roundabouts on Leucadia Boulevard.
Yeah, this is me. And again, it's really nice to hear everyone's comments on roundabouts before this. I agree with a lot of what I heard. We've, anecdotally seen a lot of collisions at Leucadia Boulevard and High Metis, and then I'm forgetting the name of the next street down beyond Hygeia at the next roundabout. Anecdotally, you see a lot of speeding, you see a lot of tire marks. We actually had a public comment today that came from God or someone, but there's an Instagram account called Roundabout Rookies, which I assume illegally put up a camera. I don't want to say illegal, but I don't think it's done by the city. And you can watch the roundabout collisions, which is terrifying, because I've never seen it before all the years I've lived here. I've only seen the tire marks and stuff, but the collisions are bad. And again, they're bad because people are going way too fast. And so we have roundabouts, but we have roundabouts with no way of, whether it's people coming off the 5 freeway, turning right, going down the hill, and continuing at 65 miles per hour or whatever it is, or they're distracted, they're on their phones. We have to figure out how to slow people down before they enter the roundabouts. I know there's been concerns and complaints about the amount of signage that's up around the roundabouts, which I can understand as it's like a blight or something. I also know there's been concerns with the fire department in terms of the angles that they can make. And so, I've suggested some things that I believe could be deemed appropriate by the fire department in terms of trying to get people to slow down. I know there's concerns about sound from rumble strips with the neighboring area. So I don't have I think this is just something that we have to keep on talking about with all our roundabouts. But I think the Leucadia Boulevard one with the video evidence on Instagram shows people are going very fast, and whether or not they would blow the stop sign, it's a good question. I don't know. We should have a video maybe at Hygeia too. But the thing is, you just can't blow it because you got to turn. And most of these accidents, you'll see it. You got Suburbans doing 360s in that area. And so, yeah, I don't have. I think there's just something we have to really consider, and I think the video evidence, as long as it stays up, we should all look at. And I don't think it's not a debate of whether or not it's just people are speeding. And the other thing I'd say that's concerning is it's not just east to west, going downhill, which I think it is. But you also have some interesting north to south speeding collisions there that I was pretty surprised by, which is that's just people speeding through a neighborhood, on High Metis, mostly going from north to south. So again, I should also mention these are almost all at night. So the good thing is it's very close to Pawlecki Elementary, one of the largest elementary schools in Encinitas. That's really concerning. There's a lot of kids on bikes crossing that intersection along Leucadia Boulevard. There's the crossing guards at Hygeia. There's no crossing guard at that roundabout. But yes, most of the really bad activity seems to occur at nights.
Thank you.
I have a question for Abe. Do we have any DUI data on the roundabout accidents on Leucadia Boulevard? I was very struck by the data on El Portal, obviously, So I'm wondering if we know anything about the degree to which this may be a contributing factor over there.
We can certainly review the data. The data is accessible. We do have the data. We can certainly look into it and see if the percentage, with regards to the percentage of collisions being caused by DUI, is similar on the Leucadia roundabouts as compared to the El Portal.
Yeah, one thing I want to add, though, and I've seen this in the data, is these are mostly hit and runs. And you could see it actually in the videos on Instagram. People hit things and then they take off. There's even a video of someone hitting someone else and taking off, which is pretty interesting. So I don't believe you're seeing much in a way of cops being able to do a DUI. Yeah, no, you see cars go and then they speed off. And we've seen this in the collision data. There's not a ton of collision data at that intersection. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd see the tire marks and think like, oh, okay, I'll see it in this month's police report, and you won't see it because they can't, unless they've apprehended someone, they're not actually collecting that data.
Commissioner Johnson here. I've learned to use the roundabouts on Leucadia Boulevard, and they seem to have slowed the traffic through there quite a bit, which is a good thing. If they also select out people who are kind of buzzed or drunk, that might be a message to those people that are losing tires or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, if it hurt people, and I know the lights have been knocked down multiple times, and again, just a budget thing where the city has to, our taxpayers' dollars, replace those lights because, again, I think people mostly do not stay at the scene of the crime. So it's just how can we get people to slow down no matter what, ideally before they do damage to the city or to people.
Well, I guess one of the good things about roundabouts is it's kind of the car versus a stationary object, which is usually not a person or another car, which I think is one of the big advantages over stop signs. But
yep, that's true.
And then, yeah, as somebody who's also lived in places where they use a lot of roundabouts, of course, they've been using them for a long time. It's gonna take people a while to get used to the whole concept. It's quite different from the way I was raised to drive when you get used to these things.
Well, we'll definitely keep that one on our list. Okay, and then the last one we had was autonomous vehicle testing pilot in Encinitas.
Yeah, this is mine. This is just a way to try to, again, allow Encinitas, which I believe deserves a lot of credit for doing a lot of things to drive safety in our community with technology, to look at also adding autonomous vehicles. Since this has been brought up, actually, San Diego is now on Waymo's list to actually come to San Diego and start a permit. So that's pretty exciting. They're one of the 12 cities that that Waymo is expanding to. Currently, Waymo is in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, Miami, and Atlanta, Georgia. And San Diego is on the next list of expansions. I'd highly recommend that Encinitas take part if there is an opportunity in a pilot. The data is unequivocally positive on the millions of miles now driven with autonomous vehicles like with Waymo, and it has very positive signs, even to the point where the new mayor of San Francisco is allowing Waymos on Market Street. Market Street is now closed to cars and only is available for transit vehicles like buses. But they've actually added, or they're in the process of adding Waymo now, given the safety record of it. So it's something that we could think about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice idea, kind of futuristic, but I think we might want to wait and have Waymo ask Encinitas for a franchise, and then start on that basis rather than having us ask Waymo to set up business in our town. Not just Waymo, but if Tesla is around, even Tesla.
I support the idea, definitely. A little bit to that point, is Encinitas even big enough as a city, to garner that attention?
No, yeah, definitely no.
Right.
The question is could we be once they get it, with the idea they're coming to San Diego, would we be in the permissible area? Just like in LA, they've expanded from downtown, now it's Hollywood, and now they're going to go all the way to LAX, and they're going to go all the way. And part of that is where those agreements get made, it's still a little unclear, but the idea that we would say, hey, North County is open to Waymo's expansion,
Yeah.
once it happens in downtown San Diego, I think that would be excellent.
Yeah,
But yeah,
no,
they're not gonna, we're not big enough.
Right, all of a sudden okay, that was my only question. Support it for sure.
Okay, so we've gone through the list now. Just kind of going through it again. Are there any?
Point of order.
Yes.
When do we have public comments on this?
Let's have public comment now. Thank you.
We have three speakers on this item. First, we have Judy Burlfine, followed by Christine Schindler, and then Steve Linke.
Hi, I'm Judy Burlfine. The list looks great. I would like to give a thumbs up for the protected intersection at El Camino Real and Santa Fe, where we have a grant, and for you to consider cycle track extending down to Miracosta College, because we have a very wide road with lots of real estate where we could safely fit more than we have now. And I also want to give a thumbs up for automated enforcement. I think speed of vehicles is, at this point, dangerous for those that are going. We've lowered our speed limits, and that's great if people follow them. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Christine Schindler, East Encinitas. So much to say, so little time. Quick build roundabouts, Crest and Santa Fe. I would encourage you to really look at that hard. Stop signs have helped. That, I think, is a perfect next location. Let's please not use the word accident, crashes, and collisions. When it comes to a car, there really are no accidents, and those kind of words matter. People walk everywhere, so it's not on your work item, but I'm a little concerned that our present council is going to pretty much put the brakes on most everything that has to do with active transportation. I hope they surprise me. However, like El Camino Real specific plan for that section, like Encinitas Boulevard to Carlsbad, and then in the other direction toward the I-5 interchange, we have a stakeholders group that's been talking and meeting for several years for improvements. We've had many improvements along El Camino Real Manchester when it comes to trying to slow traffic, trying to create more space for bikes. We need to do some more improvements for peds. We have no crossings. And Commissioner Paul, I have to disagree with you. People walk everywhere. And even if it's a handful of people, if we can give them better infrastructure, like RFPs and crosswalks, high visibility crosswalks, even more people will walk. So I want to, if you want to hear from our stakeholders group, it's a lot of people along the corridor. We'd be happy to come and talk with you. But I want you to be able to talk about that, influence staff, influence city council. What else? This council, I think, is all about better pavement, which I love. Driving, walking, biking, better pavement's good. I agree with Natalie, that the Santa Fe project, if it doesn't really include a slurry seal, it should. I want to see, with that new pavement, even better striping for traffic calming, narrower lanes, for bigger bike buffers, bigger bike lanes, wider and buffers. I feel like I'm preaching, but LPIs, I love the work that's happening. We have some crosswalks that don't have signals, and we have some signals that don't have crosswalks. So I'm hoping the LPI project kind of brings that in alignment. So thank you for your work on the work plan.
Good evening. My name is Steve Linke. I'm a former Carlsbad traffic commissioner, so I was in the same position you are now. My name was mentioned earlier. I did give a presentation to the City Council. I've been doing some research on the roundabouts in North County. And as Commissioner Medak mentioned, the State Street roundabout has been in operation in Carlsbad for 11 years now, and it has the highest collision rate of any intersection in Carlsbad and one of the highest injury rates of any intersection in Carlsbad, including pedestrian and bicycle involved injuries. And over 11 years, it hasn't gotten any better. 2024 was one of our worst years, so people just aren't learning to use these facilities properly. In your El Portal one, astronomically higher collision rate in Encinitas of any intersection in its first 2.5 years of operation, highest injury rate of any intersection if you look at your local roadway safety plan. It's very concerning. The ones that came up on Leucadia, I think that having a stop sign between two roundabouts doesn't make a lot of sense, so having a roundabout there would really improve vehicle flow. But as Commissioner Medak mentioned, the collision rate at that stop sign between the two roundabouts is about half or a third of what the roundabouts are, and it's my understanding that that intersection has about twice the amount of traffic as the other two, so which makes the collision rate 5 times higher there. So I'd be very cautious about it. You also consider the fact that if you have children that are riding their bike, they have to take the lane through the roundabout, like if it's in the morning traffic, when you have heavy commuter traffic and they're going to school, instead of having a stoplight or a stop sign to stop people and a crossing guard to allow people to cross, the elementary school kids are going to have to merge in front of the vehicles and then go through the roundabout circle among the vehicles. I don't know if they'll be comfortable doing that, or they'll have to dismount and walk their bikes around the more circuitous pedestrian route. So I'm not against roundabouts. I supported several roundabouts and traffic circles while I was on the traffic commission in Carlsbad, but be very careful. There's a lot of information out there that says that they always reduce accidents, they always reduce injuries. It's not been the case in North County, and based on my research. Thank you.
Just one more public speaker.
Okay.
Julie Thunder.
On the mention that Julie Thunder, I live in Cardiff. The mention that the Santa Fe Drive and Crest could be, I forget the term you used for it, a quick build, I think, similar to what's on Quail Gardens Drive. Quail Gardens Drive roundabout is the ugliest thing I have ever seen. Don't put something quick and dirty in if it's going to look like that. Encinitas put, I don't know who was involved and how that happened. I'm just going to share a comment. It's the ugliest thing put in a beautiful area of our city. It's the entrance to the botanical gardens. And I would have much rather our city took the time to build something nice and safe. So please do not feel the need to do Crest so quickly that you rush it with something that's half-baked like that. That's my only comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so yes.
I'm sorry, Patricia, this is a little out of order. There was something I wanted to mention at the conclusion of our discussion and bring up for discussion, if that's okay now, although the public comment took place.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that the commission was going to not restrict ourselves only to items that we have presented here from the previous commission, previous year's work, although I think there's a lot to commend some of them. But I think we should be aware that the city council has a problem, and the city, rather, has a problem with your El Portal roundabout, and that's obviously going to be something that we're going to be discussing. So I would like to have that be considered as an important discussion matter going forward, not at this time. The Hygeia-Leucadia intersection would be the second major issue I think we ought to be discussing at some point. The Santa Fe redesign is another major issue that we should obviously be very involved in, if there is a redesign.
Right. Well, that was, the next thing that I wanted to discuss was everything that, the information that City Council conveyed to us. And they certainly did talk about Santa Fe, particularly around the high school. So that clearly needs to be a project, and we need to discuss that. We could move to that next. Does that sound good? Let's see, what I did when we had our meeting with the council, I took some notes, and I know other people did too. So if it's okay, I'd like to kind of go through, what was discussed at that meeting, and then we can start to get this list together. So. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to rattle off what I heard, and then if others could also chime in, I'd appreciate it. So each of the council members kind of had their comments, and just starting with Council Member O'Hara, what I heard was he said focus on Highway 101, Santa Fe, and new development. Councilmember Schaefer said to focus on electric bike safety, and vehicles should be prioritized. And then, let's see, the mayor said to prioritize 5 to 10 projects, which should include Santa Fe Drive near the high school, enforcement, bicycle safety, and focus on community complaints and make recommendations. So you can see in there, I think two of the items that stood out a lot for me were Highway 101 and then also Santa Fe, particularly around the high school. So maybe each of us could kind of just share your thoughts on the meeting that we had with City Council and what kind of struck you as items that we should be addressing? Who'd like to start? Okay.
I don't have too much to add, though. I think I agree that 101, obviously Santa Fe, that O'Hara talked about, and I think Mayor Ayers talked about that as well. And Schaefer was particularly interested in the e-bikes, mobility of vehicles. So I think those are all basically safety is being prioritized, but mobility is also being, I think, elevated to a higher level than it might have been in previous administrations, and I think that's something that we need to be keeping in mind. And I think, I have an item later today that people know it has to do with 101, so that'll be a lot of discussion about 101 then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
Oh, well, clearly the Santa Fe Boulevard mess is the first thing we want to fix in the city, as well as the bicycle trap. And that's about it. Clearly we need more work for pedestrians and more education for e-bikes. And it's education is the problem, because you have people young people who've got more power than they've ever had, and they misuse it. And I don't have much more to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would applaud the focus that was the focus on safety, which I think is in the title of our commission. So I think that gives us ideally elevates our status and helps us with what they see as the first priority with mobility. I also agree on the idea that we want to always optimize and make the city as mobily efficient as possible, and also respecting that most people moving around the city are in cars, and how can we help them move around as safely and as efficiently as possible. I think that's a great goal to strive for. I think there's some education needed on the council level to understand e-bikes. There was a couple comments made about the classes of e-bikes. That was incorrect. There was a comment about a bike passing someone on the council going 35. It's not an e-bike, that's a moped. So understanding that and understanding what the different levels of e-bikes are versus other types of vehicles is important as we try to, of course, make them more regulated, make them adhere to rules like we make cars adhere to rules. So that was all very important. And then, unfortunately, it wasn't brought up, but in January, with this new council, we had our first death of the year, a hit and run collision. A pedestrian was killed on 101. I'd love to see more of the focus on 101 around. Now we have 2 hit and run deaths in the last two and a half years there. I'm not hearing a lot of discussion about that as it relates to safety on the 101, and I think that should be priority. When we lose someone, that's when we really need to focus. So I'd love to see that just be raised up, and we can have more. It's a terrible thing to have to talk about, but I think it's something we need to talk about.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things I had on my notes was regarding the roundabouts was consistent signage for all of them. So I think that's one thing. It's like to establish, if we're going to do roundabouts, let's have a set plan for regardless of where a roundabout's going to be. Signage, so as a city, you come into a roundabout, it's going to be the same as every roundabout you're coming into the city, so we understand what we're coming into. Because, yeah, people aren't going to be used to them at first, but ultimately people do get used to them. That would help accelerate that process. And then maybe, I get it, some are on slopes. Lucadia, the one on Santa Fe, coming down into one, I can see how cars can have momentum. If it's a stop sign, okay, they skid, maybe they slide through it. As long as there's no car there, there's no issue. They go through the stop sign, they effectively run it. So it is more of an issue on a slope. So maybe there we would need to figure out ways to mitigate that on the downhill traffic side, whatever that might be. Again, that's something for the engineers, fire department. This commission doesn't have the knowledge of even how to approach that. We can say, speed bumps would be great or whatever, but there's just a lot involved that we could just spend our hours talking about that may or may not even be relevant. So I think there's things there the city could have kind of set up as a framework. And then, then it's a matter of, okay, does this belong here? That's what we could probably have most value with regard to roundabouts. The 101, I agree it needs to be more specific, though. Sure, 101 is probably the pride of Encinitas for sure, but, it's a very broad stretch of area. So, whether it's specific areas of danger where people and lives are being lost or impacted or whatever, I think we just wouldn't want to narrow it down. But it's something like that's fine to have on the list. It's like if something happens in 101, we'll look at it. Yeah, that was it for pretty much and then of course Santa Fe. Santa Fe is another one though too. We're not going to be recommending what's going to happen to Santa Fe. The city will prepare. We might have some input, but I think we're not going to be here proactively generating what we think should happen on Santa Fe. So I think that's fine if it's on the list. We'll just give our commission role in terms of input on whatever those plans look like, and hopefully our opinion of those things might then resonate with the city council to rethink something that we may, through the population, regard as not right or whatever. So that's my take on those things from that meeting specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I did hear enforcement quite a bit, including from the mayor, and so I think that Commissioner Gross, said it very well and has been saying it consistently that we need to look at automated enforcement, and I think El Camino Real is just and that goes with the speed and the enforcement on El Camino Real. We've got to do something there, because I mean in between Encinitas Boulevard and Lucadia, 30 miles an hour, nobody goes 30, and then on opposite sides of that, entering from Lucadia Boulevard is and coming down and up after Santa Fe is crazy. So I agree with the mayor and what we've been talking about in terms of enforcement and with speed. It's come up many times. And so if we can maybe just focus on a few roads, and then we can defer to Sergeant Collis and have him. I think by the sounds of it, he might get some help there. I think that's a good focus for us. And then I also want to mention that I heard from Deputy Mayor Lynn's comment on safe routes to school, and if we could designate, which can also support Mayor Ellers in his, he mentioned circulation, so this could support him, and that is with safe routes to school, if we could designate roadway, that will help everyone understand bikes, peds, and automobiles, which roads to take during certain times of the day. I think it would be helpful for everybody involved. And the last thing I heard a lot was education, and we mentioned it here as well. And I think if we can kind of step up our support and talk about it more, and it will help Mr. Buck with his job. And if we can, was mentioned here by a couple of speakers, one in particular, and if we could kind of initiate that, and we support him in educating, and it's not only e-bike, but it's people who are driving, and then they know that when they're coming into a certain area of the city, they know that they've got to slow down, and e-bikes are going to be around schools, and we want to make sure that we protect the kids for sure. That's got to be one of the number one priorities. Thank you.
Well, one of the things about being last is other people have already grabbed a lot of your thoughts. I think one thing that I've heard people allude to is what I think the mayor calls the circulation plan. So it seems like that's something that he's really interested in us reviewing, and I think it makes a lot of sense, given more of a focus on trying to find a balanced approach between all the different elements of mobility. With respect to automated enforcement, my recollection is that while the mayor was very interested in enforcement, he wasn't super excited about automated enforcement. So I don't know whether that's a education issue or a difference of opinion, but that's probably something we need to seek a little bit more clarification on, whether the council wants us to really look into that. And then, I thought the comments actually from the commissioner from Carlsbad on roundabouts were really useful and sort of touched on some elements I hadn't really thought about in terms of children and these roundabouts on bicycles and things like that. So that's probably something we really need to think about, how that all gets integrated in. And in addition to safe bike routes, I think something I've seen in the past growing up in San Diego, La Jolla has a lot of these scenic bike routes, which in some cases are scenic, and in other cases what they're trying to do is trying to guide people off of these dangerous areas, dangerous roads. And so I think that's something we should also consider as well. I know there's going to be some avid bicyclists that are going to want to go wherever they can, but certainly for the rest of the folks on bikes, it might be nice to get a little guidance in terms of what are the safer bike routes to follow as well. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't really on the mayor's list, but something that I heard in a previous meeting was the idea with the new Vision Zero initiative, the idea of striping to enforce those sort of vision at the crosswalks. I know even in my own neighborhood, there are people that are parking in places that make it really difficult, even as a driver, to see what's going on for the oncoming. So I don't know whether that's a project or just a proposal to the folks in the city to do more striping there. I think it was James or Jim suggested that in a meeting last year. And I think that's everything on my list. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one more comment here. with the housing elements sites coming online this year, we're going to see a lot of issues that were not properly handled in the Planning Commission. These include parking issues and perhaps even some, can we say, severe traffic jams. I see the Fox Point Farms is certainly the poster child for this, but the other sites will also increase congestion. And the choice here is to be either proactive or reactive. And I think with our format, we probably have to just be reactive when people start mentioning that it takes an hour to get from one street to another. But in the future, we may want to have something in the plan that lets us respond to these concerns.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've gone through all of the projects that we had on our work plan, and we've gone through the guidance we got from City Council. When I think of the top five, I think of Santa Fe around the high school. I think of 101, although Commissioner Duncan, you said it's pretty broad. I mean, we're saying Highway 101. What exactly are we trying to accomplish? So I think we need to have more conversations about that. What are some of the other projects that people want to see, at the top of this list?
So, Chair, to help, I removed all the staff-initiated items and the items that were commissioner-initiated but were already happening from the original list, and added 4 items that I heard from the commissioners right now: Santa Fe around high school revisions, potential revisions, enforcement, education, and then the circulation and mobility review with a brief description of what I thought I heard. There might be other projects that were mentioned that I missed. Or there might be more that you want to add. And then you can go through this list and prioritize, or do another round of trimming down this list. I mean, your call, obviously, but I thought this might help if you want to put any kind of a yes/no voting process or something. I can add the information for you.
I think that sounds real appropriate. So we can just kind of go back through that list and kind of yay or nay. Does that sound good to people? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so then let's see, going back to the collision and citation portal, is that something that people see as a high priority, or is that more of a lower priority?
That wasn't really discussed, and I can't remember who brought that to the commission originally. I do think this is something that I think we'll see today with Commissioner Mendick's proposal. There's a lack of common ground on where we're pulling data from. Clearly, there's Switter's and Tim's as open source databases, but even with the city and the sheriff and the way they report, there are some standards that we probably do need to agree to as more people use data as an argument. So. Yeah, no one talked about this one, and I don't remember who did it, but it's an interesting point.
No, I agree. I think more data is better. It's hard to have a rational discussion without data, and obviously, if there's a portal where people can provide comments, that would be very helpful. I don't know what the technological issues are behind that, but I don't imagine they're insurmountable.
Okay. Well,
Chair, to clarify, following what Commissioner Gross mentioned, there are available platforms, both on the state side and even on the SANDAG website, that with a little bit of work, I mean, you have to kind of filter the jurisdiction and the number of years that you want the collision or the type of collision. You do have to do some filtering work, but that data is available. We did approach our sheriff's office to ask them if it's possible to have something similar tailored, specifically made for city of Encinitas. They did mention that they don't have the capacity, so there's obviously the option of, with council blessing, we hire an IT consultant or somebody who can connect like the state database with some sort of a portal with the city. But the fact that, as Commissioner mentioned, there are 2 or 3 other sources already, like suitors, that are publicly accessible, I would be surprised if council would want to contribute funding to such a portal to have like a dedicated for Encinitas. It's very valuable, as was mentioned. It's certainly a good thing to have. Just because like I use these portals myself, and anybody else can just create a login and have access to this data.
Okay, if I'm understanding you correctly, this data is kind of already available to people.
It is.
Yeah.
It is available. It's just not Encinitas a specific portal. It's just a statewide, or like on Sandac side, there's like a county-wide. You just have to do some filtration and.
Yeah, and there does seem to be like a lack of data engineering to, where this was going, now that I recall, is we were trying to get from the sheriff the, changes. Let's look year over year, let's look month over month, let's look where we're doing enforcement, is that improving? And they didn't have the resourcing to do that, not surprisingly. So this is, ultimately a bit of a budget challenge. But I definitely, based on what the council thinks, especially as you think about circulation, you want to measure that. This could be something they would need to fund, and then we could ask them the questions. It's not appropriate necessarily to ask the sheriff's data science questions, but someone would know the answers to them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we'll keep it on the list. Maybe it's a little further down. Let's see. How about the safer infrastructure through automated enforcement?
Just if I can make a comment here to what you had said about the mayor's comment, which I agree with. We did have a commissioner-initiated item last year that asked for up to 2 to 4 more sheriffs for traffic enforcement, given the comment from Sheriff Collis that basically they can write as many tickets as you want, if that's where they want to use their time. Clearly, you could argue that police should be doing more high-value work than just speed radar work that can be automated. So that was put on the docket at that time with a different council and was rejected. Because of budget reasons, but we did go that route. The automated enforcement route is a route where, of course, automated enforcement is generally revenue positive, so it doesn't cost anything long term. It's an investment upfront with cost. But I don't mind going that route if we can get the police officers.
Okay, so is this something we want to keep on the list, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I'd support that.
Are we saying as one of our priorities, or were we saying on the list?
Well, I'm trying to like weed out some things, and some projects have already been done. So I think we're starting to narrow it down.
I think some of the items are just the way they're worded. Maybe they're a little broad. If we maybe got more specific with them too, that might help, kind of with purpose of them. Because I see these, I'm like, okay, what's that for? What's it going to do, right? The automated enforcement, I think maybe if we identified a couple locations, I think, where Manchester turns into El Camino Real, between there and Santa Fe, that's a fast stretch, whether it's a conversation of, okay, a speed camera there, right? Maybe 2 or 3 speed cameras in locations, and that's it, right? Because otherwise it's just this big beastie issue that may never get specifically addressed.
I think that's a real valid point that you said. Are there other intersections that people think need to have this automated enforcement?
The 2 hit-and-run deaths would be one, so that's 101 at Encinitas and 101 at Leucadia.
I'll just circle back to what I said before. I mean, I don't have a problem with it being on the list, but it seems like it should be lower priority just based on the comments from the mayor. I mean, unless people heard something different, it sounded like he was more.
I think it's just, what are we? Our job is safety, right? We have hit and run deaths. We have no sense of who did them. What's the job of safety if we're not preventing and trying to adhere to figuring out why these things happen?
Our job's a little more nuanced than that, I think. But I mean, I think our job also is to work on projects under the direction of the council. So,
the priority is safety. How do you get dangerous cars off the streets? How do you get people so they don't get run over?
Well, and that was the genesis of the list too, was just to identify some things that, may never come to us from the council, because they got a lot of things to deal with, right? So this was our idea of trying to be proactive.
But I mean, I think we already heard feedback from the council that they weren't interested in doing that, but if you want to bring it back, that's
He said
fine.
he supported enforcement, law enforcement. That's what I was saying. We could go law enforcement. We've just seen the other council rejected that, so we could change this to more law enforcement officers if we want.
Okay.
Well, and to
So
my
which
point is
one, which one is it? Is it automated enforcement, or it's just higher enforcement? How are you trying to rephrase it at this point?
We could if we need to. I'm asking
Okay.
but the idea that we wouldn't have enforcement as maybe the highest priority to safety, and we're going to talk about roundabouts, I don't know. That seems like not where the deaths are occurring.
Well, I think enforcement is part of it, but I think we also need to have laws and requirements that people are willing to follow. Just forcing people to do things, in my own experience, is not that good of a way to solve problems. So, I mean, if people
So
are going
suggesting that we
fast, there might
rewrite
be
the laws?
I'm sorry?
Should we rewrite the laws?
Well, it depends which law we're talking about, but I think we need to be prudent about what we're trying to do. If people are violating speed laws, there could be a lot of reasons for that. It could be maybe the speed limits are too low.
Okay.
We've had automatic enforcement before in the city, and it wasn't very popular. That's why it was taken away. And I have experience with it also from Europe. I remember I was in Salzburg once, drove 18 miles an hour in a 15-mile-an-hour zone and got a ticket about 4 months later from the Salzburg Police Department, and there was no way to appeal. And it was amazing. It was purely a revenue. And this was a wide street. It was probably 50 feet wide. There was nobody around. It was just a way for somebody to be able to raise, it was a tax. And I think a lot of people in our city are going to look at this as just a tax. And also, I just don't think it's very effective. People learn very quickly which intersections those lights are at. So it doesn't stop them anywhere else if they want to speed. We can't stop people's behavior. We can do the best we can to provide safe infrastructure for people to go, but we can't stop people's behavior completely.
I think the one thing is differences between the stoplights and just a speed camera, right, in a stretch. So I agree the lights are kind of I even got a couple tickets on the El Camino Encinitas Boulevard lights when those were there, right, on making a right turn, rolling through a right turn. I'd never liked it. So I'm not necessarily in favor of those, because those it's like, all right, can I make this light? It's a judgment call. It may not even be speeding, but you go into the intersection too late, right? I think the speeding issue is a fundamental safety issue. And there's only really a handful of locations. And I think for the mayor, if we were to specify, here are the areas where we think traffic is fast, whether it's a too slow a speed limit, it's a separate issue, that's being done, speed limits are being mitigated. But, if it's an area where 40 is the speed limit, people are going 55, or if it's 50 speed limit and people are going 60, or more, I think it's pretty clear those are areas we could consider to evaluate is a speed camera there. There's in Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, they've got them on Lincoln Boulevard and some locations, and people learn really fast. And those used to be speedways. And now they're very well navigated because people know those cameras are there, and you're going to get a ticket if you're speeding. Simple. So I think in certain areas, again, not in favor of the traffic light ones, but it's just something I think that, Commissioner Gross says our purpose here is for safety. That's clearly a safety issue. It's one of the most clear one in my mind. And if that's something that can be done, which is a proven method of mitigating speeding, our cameras, I think it's just something we should consider, or at least have on the list and identify locations. And then if it gets voted down, then it gets voted down.
I think that's a good argument that you presented. And if we can identify, if the sheriffs can help us identify streets where that's kind of egregious speeding is going on,
yeah,
it would be hard to argue against your idea.
Yeah, simple process.
Okay.
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry, related.
Abe, go ahead.
Two comments. One is that speed enforcement, speed enforcement, as we discussed before, currently on a state level, there are only a handful of, I think it's like 6 or 7 cities on a pilot program that they are allowed to do it based on a assembly bill, I want to say, that they're allowed to do it. We have the opportunity of applying and asking to be added to the list, but there's no straight line process of just installing cameras. With red light cameras, it's approved, it's doable, totally feasible. We can do tomorrow, start installing them. With the speed, there is that. But I just want to clarify that just by identifying those locations, we just cannot go out and put. That's one. Second, is as a procedure, because I know we have a lot of speakers tonight, and I don't know how we want to approach our commissioner-initiated item that's kind of related to this. One suggestion, and obviously you're totally fine with processing the way that you are already. What do you think about, because we have obviously a lot more items on this than our potential future work plan. What do you think about voting on these ones to kind of filter the ones that do not get that much traction out, make the list a little shorter? If we have like 3, 4 items that get all the 7 votes from all the members, then obviously we know those are the ones. But if there are items that get 3 votes, 2 votes, 4 votes, at least those can make it simpler so we can kind of get to a better work plan faster. Because I don't know how we can discuss these for hours.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
There's a budget item here under this, as you can either spend money putting more motorcycles on the street, or you can spend money putting up the cameras and so forth, and administering the cameras. And the motorcycles, I think, generate a better return on your money because they have visibility. The cameras, if they tag someone, no one else sees that somebody's gotten busted. But if a motorcycle officer is regularly pulling people over in some area, the message gets to all the other drivers. Perhaps the sheriff might comment on that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. Usually just us being out there, being visible, they see our lights, they see us go over or whatnot. That's a little bit more of a deterrent rather than just.
Yeah, and I'm happy to change it to, sheriff enforcement if we don't want to say automated, given the administration that's now in place. I think that's a nice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think we all can agree that enforcement is what we're talking about. Commissioner Duncan, yeah, for sure, if we get some details on that. But I think enforcement really is the key. And if there's consequences for breaking the law we're talking about, then that's what we're talking about.
Okay, so are people ready to start voting on these? Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay. Amanda, how do you want to do this? Do you want us to use the screen or?
Did you have an idea?
Just raise hand.
Raise hand. Okay.
Put a number, 7, 6, 5, 4, based on the number of votes each item gets. You want to call the item?
Okay.
I think if the item is not clear and you want to discuss the item like this, is obviously fair. If a commissioner is not clear on what they're voting on, we can kind of elaborate a little bit more. But like item 24.6, I think that's pretty clear. Everybody now has an idea of what it is. If you want to vote on it, I would say just go one by one down and just raise hands if you like the item, and then I'll put the number of hands I see, and then we'll have a prioritized list. If the high votes are still too big of a list, then we can revisit those higher items again.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Let's see, item 24.6, preparation of the collision and citation portal. We did talk about Sandag has the same type of information, and so does the state. So if people want to, just raise your hand if you want to support that one to keep it on the list. Okay. Moving right along. 2410. So this is one we were just talking about. And it's, focused on enforcement. And, we can, I think we're moving in the direction of saying that we'd like more enforcement by the sheriff's department. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, if you can just strike the automated from there, that I can support that.
Okay. Okay, do you want to raise your hand on that one if you support it?
Commissioner Johnson, do I see your hand or?
We're getting rid of the automated, yeah.
Just enforcing it.
Just enforcement.
As an option.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson, no, okay, 6.
Okay, very good. Let's see, so 2411 is done. 2412, Vulcan Trail, safe routes.
Five.
Okay. Let's see. 2413 is done. 2414, this is bike parking at the commercial businesses.
Can I say a little bit higher, please? I'm kind of low, I don't see it. 2? Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Marak, you had your hand up on this one? Your hand was up? Was up, okay.
Okay, then let's see, next is 2415, the mid-block crosswalks, particularly in New Encinitas. We were talking about El Camino Real.
Four.
Okay, let's see, the sidewalk at Birmingham Drive and Legay.
6.
And 2417 is Santa Fe and Crest to have a quick build roundabout.
Three.
Okay, let's see, implementing safer roundabouts on Lucadia Boulevard.
Can we include that as part of like just the standardization of roundabouts? Is that kind of, that feels like kind of the same because that was something that came up at the city council.
Yeah.
So.
I just worry to your point, it goes the opposite way now where we're not specific enough.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That standard should be good.
What was your clarification? I didn't hear your point.
Sorry, my
Clarification with every,
Talking about
Oh.
Oh, well, a standard signage plan for a roundabout, regardless of where it is, as a baseline. And then, depending on if it's on a slope or whatever may be warranted. But either way, I support it.
So something to clarify, this, because we heard council at a meeting, we already received that direction. We are working on this. So at some point, commission will see and the new amenity cities out, and it does have new roundabout signage. We're kind of checking that against what we have out there. And obviously our older roundabouts have some signs that are not in MUTC anymore, but we know our residents like the yield to circle, yield to vehicles in circle. That's not in MUTC anymore, but we heard it loud and clear that residents do like it for the information that it provides, obviously. So you will hear from staff on a standardized signage and marking on our roundabout very soon, even if it's not on your, just trying to help make it smaller.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we still want to keep Lucadia Boulevard roundabouts as a project?
Yeah.
We vote on it? Okay.
7.
And then the last is the automated vehicle testing pilot in Encinitas.
Okay.
We'll speak up when the opportunity when it comes. Yeah.
Okay, the next is Santa Fe revisions. And that's around the high school, correct? Okay.
I'm sorry, what was supposed to?
Santa
6,
Fe revisions.
Oh.
Yeah.
7. I guess this is redundant with this one over here.
And just to share, at the first budget workshop, there was some traction for additional enforcement funding. So we won't know for sure whether that makes that into the budget until probably May or June, but it does have some traction so far.
Thank you. Okay. So education, we want to have that as a project? It's kind of broad, but, you know, I think we, yeah.
So broad. I don't know what.
Well, maybe we should, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Well, they said 5 to 10, so we could, you know, we can give them more. Maybe it's not a high priority, but I think.
The last one is mobility.
Okay. And then the last one.
This last one, I wrote it. I'm not sure if I heard correctly. I thought the idea was for commission to review our roadway network to identify roads not on the main higher classification, rather than lower classification roads that have the potential to be used for active transportation, improving our bikeways and our sidewalks or walkways, crosswalks on these side streets in lieu of improving our bikeway system and active transportation system on our higher classification roadways. This is what I heard and what I thought council would want.
Okay.
Would it help to specify that like in an area around schools specifically?
It's, yeah.
That makes sense. Like if it's in around a radius of schools, the best way for kids, I would agree with that.
See any issues, Abe, with us focusing more on just around schools?
No, what I think, unless commission wants to wrap this today, what I can do is after you prioritize this, I'll kind of adjust the table, rewrite it, put a little bit of clear description based on what I heard, and next week we can kind of hash it out and make sure this is exactly what commission likes and finalize the table next week.
Think that sounds like a plan?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone good with that? Okay.
Did we vote on this last one or no?
Yeah. Yes.
6.
Okay, so you'll give us the results next week, is that right, Abe?
Yes, I'll sort this table, and then next week you can decide how far down the ratings you want to go, and then which ones you want to drop, and then if there is a description that I put for them that you don't like or you want to revise, you will revise next week, and then that would become our work plan recommendation for council.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so then let's see, we'll move on to item number 6, Commissioner Corner, and Commissioner Medak put a pamphlet of information together, so I'd like him to present his information.
Do we have an IT person who's going to be able to put the images up? Or are you going to be doing that, Abe? I will help. Yes. Okay, I'll let you know when we're going to start with number 1, if that's okay. Are you set?
I have this presentation that says Run M. I have this.
That's probably about slide number.
And then I have another one that says Run Slide Bounce. You have one file or you have multiple?
I have 10 slides, and IT kept clearing them with me. So let's see where we're starting.
These ones we have.
Okay, well, that's fine. Let's just wait with this, and I'll tell you when we'll bring that up, if that's okay. and then we'll go from there. And that would be fine, because that'll be, okay. So 5 years ago, the decision was made to implement a Class 4 cycle track on the area from Chesterfield Drive down to Solana Beach on Highway 101. That decision was considered in the Traffic Commission, I believe it was called at that time, now in August 2019. And it was really presented as a kind of a fait accompli. There was never a vote on it at commission level. It was merely presented, there was some discussion, and then it went to City Council the following month in September. And at that point, there were quite a number of people that came to that meeting and opposed it. Many of them were experienced cyclists, including people who were very experienced in safety and cycling and traffic in general. There were a couple of people that opposed it, and there were a lot of letters. There were probably 35 letters. There were a couple of people that opposed it, or rather supported, I mean, and that included the husband of the main proponent of that proposal, who was Catherine Blakespeare, the mayor at the time. That was Jeremy Blakespeare, her husband. And he basically gave a presentation in which he was saying that if you build it, they will come. But there was no usage data that was ever done. So we don't know if they came, and we don't know if they didn't came. And that should have been done, but it wasn't. So, and when he was talking about they will come, we were talking about families and children, because that's how this was presented. And we just don't know. But what were the results? That's important. And that's not, that slide should be up here, it's not, but it was an attachment, and it's labeled Highway 101 South Beach, total crashes, 2006 to the present. And I'm going to try to present that to you verbally, since we don't have it in front of us. No, that's not it. But there was an attachment.
To the report, perhaps?
Oh, there we go. You do have it. Excellent. Now, it's important to realize, and a lot of people have brought that up, and nothing was trying to be hidden here. And that's why I put all the data in terms of attachments, so that everybody who was interested in this issue could go ahead and research it to the degree that they could or hadn't already done. So there were 4 different databases. There was the Traffic Incident and Management System, the so-called TIM system, which is based on the same database as what's called SWITRS, which is Statewide Integrated Traffic Record System. The third is the actual Encinitas Fire Department EMT dispatches, which is a different database. The first 2 databases are reported crashes, but they have their deficiencies. One is that a single, in terms of bicycles at least, if there's a single bicycle accident or an accident within a Class 4 cycle track, it doesn't go into the SWITRS database at all, because those Class 4 cycle tracks are not considered part of the roadway. The Encinitas Fire Department EMT dispatches are all the dispatches this was filtered by Chief Gordon, actually, looking for bicycle crashes between Chesterfield Drive and Solana Beach. So that is what that data represents. The 4th database is a Facebook site that was set up by Serge Isikoff, who's been very involved in bicycle safety and is a very important proponent of that in North County. And he listed a total of 34 crashes in his database. And that database went from 4/21 to the present. So the 2 databases that covered that period were the EMT dispatches and the Facebook site. And you can see, because the databases are different, I wouldn't say that it's comparing apples to oranges, but it's not apples to apples. And that's going to be true with all databases almost, unless they're exactly the same, because they just have a different reporting system. And I think if we went to the next slide, where we look, we need to go to that line graph that we had over there and say before. There. So if we look at this graph, we can see that there was a step up in 2017 in crashes and in serious crashes. That probably represents primarily the addition of the Encinitas Fire Department dispatch data. And then after April of 2020, which would be there, we see a big increase in total number of crashes comparing to the, at that point. So those total number of crashes, to a certain extent, are coming out, but not completely, are coming out of the Crash 101 list, and also an increase that occurs during that period of time that's reported from the Encinitas Fire Department EMT list. And I think what it's telling us, more importantly than almost anything else, is that the 101 for cyclists was not perfectly safe before April 2020. It was far from it. It was not really satisfactory at that time, in my opinion, at least. And I'll show you in a little bit why I believe that was true, or what the reason was for that. But we didn't solve any problems when we put in the bollards and the wheel stops. Unfortunately, we increased them. So that brings us to the next issue, which is, well, let's just take a look at it, because let's go to the next slide, if you can get that up here. Oh, well, that should have been number one. So let's continue.
From what I heard from our IT department, they received these files with no order, so they just put them in a presentation for you. They didn't have any order of these files. So
the IT people told me they would be in order. I gave them an order.
So the files had numbers on them, like file number 1, file number 2?
I'm sorry?
Our IT department, because they didn't know what the order of the file, if the file names.
I told them the order.
Oh, you told them?
Oh, yes. I emailed them the order.
Okay, so I just go through them and you tell me which one you want me to stop on, because I don't know which one is the one.
You can just leave right there? Okay. Are you able to do this? This is a video, Abe. Are you able to do this as a video for us?
Let me see if it's... No. Maybe the video file is... Kirian, are you here? Oh yeah, let's go to the next slide, and he'll come to.
Oh, let's go back to that slide. I'll just walk people through it. Okay, so this is a video, and since we can't run the video, and I had told IT that we were going to run it at full speed and at half speed, I just have to tell you, and you just have to believe me that this is what happened. This gentleman, we're going to call Fred from San Clemente. He wasn't a local. He is a very skillful rider. He happened to find himself right. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
If you click on that, is that going to run our video for us? So, hey, very good. Now, if you can go right back to it. Now, go down to the settings, down to the right-hand corner. Yeah. Should be able to pick those up. You can get started and then stop it once. Stop it, and then put it on half speed, please. And before you start it, go to half speed, yeah. Now, I want everybody to watch this man's head really carefully. And let's just see what happens. Go ahead. That's fine. We can go to what I'm trying to do is put a little color on what actually is happening out there so that people are aware of it. And this man's head missed one of these wheel stops by about a foot. And he was going about 17 or 18 miles an hour. If he would have had it head on, he would have been, in all likelihood, another fatality in that very area across the street. So let's go to the next slide. No. No. The one with a car in it. I think you have, there, okay. So the point that's being made here is that, contrary, sometimes people use what I consider a misnomer, where they refer to these as protected pathways or protected cycle tracks. They're not protected. It's only an illusion of protection. If an automobile collides with another automobile, these plastic flexi bollards or flexi post bollards don't stop the vehicle at all. In this particular case, it was two cars that collided, and the one car, this is going northbound at the south section of the 101 that we're talking about. He ended up doing 180, and in the process ran into a young woman about 28 years old, I believe, who was on her cycle, and she ended up getting in the ambulance, going to the hospital where she had major spinal surgery. So my only point being, this would have occurred if we took away the bollards or we took away the wheel stops and put the cyclists there and put the cars there. It probably would have occurred exactly the same way. The only point that's being made here, you're not getting protection. If you think you're getting protection, you're not. Okay, we can go to the next slide.
Oh, which one is it?
I'm sorry. It's the one where the paramedics are around a gentleman who's on the ground. I think it might be that there. So this gentleman here is from the North County Cycle Club. On this day, he was acting, he's a very experienced cyclist. His name is Ken. He was acting as the sweeper for the group, which means that he had responsibilities, since he was experienced, more experienced than some, to come at the end of the group and help out if anybody was having difficulty, if there was a reason that they were lagging behind. Could be, whatever reason. And his only comment later, when he was recalling what happened, was suddenly this post was in front of him, and the next thing he knew, he went down. The end result for him was he was taken to La Jolla, Scripps La Jolla Memorial, with a broken clavicle, 5 broken ribs, a brain contusion. He was unconscious for many hours, and he had a brain bleed. Okay, so we can go to the next one, which is a picture of the cyclotrack near Solana Beach going north. Let me see if we can see it. There it is. This is a really tough slide to look at because this is, if you're on the 101 leaving Solana Beach, there's a descent going down to the flat area along the ocean. And we're going northbound here. Right here is where the wheel stops begin and the bollards, or the flex posts, whatever we want to call them. There was a gentleman there, a 48-year-old man, who was on his bicycle returning to Encinitas at night. And this was actually predicted before these were ever put in by Carl Rudnick, safety expert in bikes, that this would be a difficult area, especially when there were times of poor visibility. He was there in the evening and hit one of these bollards, in all probability. But there were no witnesses. But his body was found sprawled in the middle of the bike lane. The blood stain was a little further down here. So he hit somewhere in this area here, flew off his bike, hit one of these asphalt berms with his head, and had an extremely severe brain injury which caused his death. He was a father of 4, including a 17-year-old girl who's attending SDA, one of my daughter's students, actually. So that's just a part of what's been going on, but there's quite a bit. And so the question then becomes, there's been criticism of databases, but I really have to say that the one-on-one crash databases are very important because there's actually witness reports of what happened. And you don't see that when you look at Tim's data or Switter's data or even the EMT data. And what one sees when one looks at the analysis of the one-on-one crashes is very important. I went through those by one. I threw out 4 of the crashes there and added one that Mr. Isikoff didn't include. That's an attachment in my item, which is Annie of the Sea reported that she hit the bollards, and you can read it yourself in the attachment. It's not considered a severe accident. She didn't go to the hospital, et cetera. But it cost her the wheel of her bicycle and a lot of pain. But if we look at the 19, there are 19 out of these remaining 30 accidents in that area that all involved these flexoposts and or wheel stops. And if we look at the degree of severity, and we rate it from 1 to 5, which is what Switter's does, there was 1 that was serious, 2 that were visible, 6 that complained of pain, or rather 6 that were visible, 5 that were serious, 6 that were visible, 5 that complained of pain, 4 which was only property damage, and 1 fatality. So they're not trivial accidents by any stretch of the imagination. So what are we left with? I think at this point, what we need to do is think in terms of what kind of solutions we have. So at this point, I think what we need to do is eliminate our Class 4 cycle track and instead replace it with a Class 2, which is what we had before. We had a Class 2 before this all ever started. If we could look at the slide that shows the measurements, Abe. That's going to be, yeah, that's it. Okay. So this is a Google Earth image of Highway 101, where we have the parallel parking, which is the area south of the restaurants on the ocean side, right here. This is the cycle track. This is the pedestrian path over here, the gray area, the green area being the cycle track. Then we have the cars parked. Between those two are the bollards and the wheel blocks. That's actually a 3-foot area. And then on the outside, there's a buffer, and the buffer is, I believe it's 3 feet. No, it's 2 feet. I'm calling it a door zone buffer, but it's not really a full door zone buffer at all, but it's a buffer of 2 feet. If we use all of that space that we have, and we take the cars and put them next to the pedestrian path along the curb where they used to be, we have enough space for a 5.5-foot wide bicycle lane, a 4-foot door zone buffer, and a 3-foot traffic buffer. And the question is, why do we have that? And it's because the traffic engineers did a really good job of slowing down traffic on the 101 because there's been a lot of lane dieting, as I understand. I took a look at the old Google Earth from 2016, and those lanes have been constrained, made less wide, so less conducive to high speeds. And that gives us space. So we can replace this with a very ample Class 2 bike lane, which would be very safe for people of all levels. There won't be any plastic to run into, nor to give the illusion of safety, but it would be very efficient and it'll be much safer than what we have. So we can go to the next slide, which was a slide, you had it before. It was the street level slide of the 101. There we go, Abe. So here we're looking in June 2017 of the same stretch of road. This is what we had. The cars parked parallel to the ocean. There was no pedestrian path, I don't think, at that time in the way we have now. And then we had a 4-foot wide bike lane, which meant that if you wanted to avoid the door zone, which covered almost that whole thing, you had to be out here. Really right almost into the high-speed traffic, number 2 lane. I rode that, I don't know, hundreds of times. And it was also, I always felt it was sketchy. A lot of people, other people didn't think it was so sketchy, and a lot of people were willing to go out and take the road. I didn't do that at that time, at least not alone. If it was a group, that was one thing. But I didn't feel comfortable just going out there like that. But I really wasn't any safer over here, even if I thought I was. And I think that is part of the reason that we had these accidents going on. It's not all the reason, because we had a lot of, as I said, we had a lot of accidents before 2020, but the vast majority of those accidents are occurring, as Abe knows, at the points of conflict. That would be Chesterfield, the entrance and egress from the state beaches, and Las Olas intersection as well. That was the majority of the accidents. Okay, so we have just one final slide, and I won't take any more of anybody's time on this presentation. And that's the slide of that speed limit sign. There. Okay, so the reason I brought this slide along is because there's an aesthetic issue that I think is important as well. And it's not the part about the 30-mile speed limit sign. I don't have any problems with that. But when we take away the cycle track, and we don't have it anymore, this one, which says no pedestrians on bikeway, will no longer be necessary or even allowed, because there won't be any reason for that. Pedestrians are going to be able to easily be avoided by bicyclists who are not constrained by wheel blocks and by flexi posts. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Meddock. I'd like all the other commissioners to have an opportunity to, let's open it up to the public.
We have 14 speakers, and we have one resident, Natalie Satoon, who is in support of the item but doesn't wish to speak. Rod Friedman is first, followed by Karen Freeman, and then Chris Giles.
Hello. Hello. Thank you very much. Rob Friedman. Live in the neighborhood, bike up and down the 101 and other parts of Encinitas quite regularly. Thank you very much for providing the presentation and doing all that work to gather all the data and presenting to all of us and giving us a chance to speak. We all want the same thing. We want safety for bikers, pedestrians, and drivers in our city. And I commend Ron for collecting, sorting, and reviewing the retrospective data regarding the bicycle injuries on the 101. However, retrospective data, unfortunately, often leads to erroneous conclusions. Ambiguous, confounding, and unclear reports and accounts interfere with an accurate picture of what may have taken place and leads to incorrect conclusions about causality. If a quick look at the internet will say that retrospective studies, while valuable for using existing data, face validity challenges and the ability to establish causality. These challenges include recall bias, selection bias, and the potential for missing or incomplete information. So I think Commissioner Meddock is correct. We just don't know. Retrospective studies provide a good starting point, and they typically point towards the need for more rigorous prospective research. Misinterpretation of data happens all the time in science, and it leads to a lot of mistakes and policy problems that then have to be corrected. So before the city and the taxpayers incur the expense of construction to remove barriers and reconfigure the lanes, I'd just propose a two-part logical step. First, we should be educating the community about how to use these lanes. It would be very helpful. I had the hard experience of self-education when my pedal clipped one of those things coming into out of Solana Beach and into Encinitas, where they start, when I was unfamiliar with them. So I think having some signs posted, kind of informing people that what to expect and how to use these lanes appropriately would be a big first step. So I think educating the community and all of us who use these lanes, like not going 17 to 20 miles an hour inside those lanes, that's not what they're designed for. If you want to do that, be in the lanes with the cars. And so if we start by educating people and then do a prospective study for a year, we'd capture the data and really understand if this is a problem that needs to be changed. Perfect. Thank you.
Karen Freeman, please, and then Chris Giles and Aaron Hebsche.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. It is a delight to witness and be engaged in the multiple numbers of recreational opportunities here in Encinitas, and the cycle track being one of them. Again, my name is Karen Freeman. I'm a regular cycler, commuting to and from work 3 to 4 days a week from my home in Encinitas to Carmel Valley, where my office is and where I work as a sports dietitian, working with Olympic, recreational, and professional athletes for most of my career. And I'd like to share my cycling and commuting experiences with you. Last week, when there was coastal fog and delayed flights in and out of San Diego and limited visibility on the grounds for both auto drivers and cyclists alike, I chose to use the cycle track as a safer alternative to the share row lane, which is often my preferred and usual choice. Under the weather conditions, this was safer and slower. Cycle track riders need to ride slowly and to be aware of the surfers and other people passing by those lanes, using bells or voices to alert pedestrians and they need to know that pedestrians always have the right of way. When these cycle tracks get more crowded during holidays and during the summer, there needs to be rules posted similar to what I've seen in Solana Beach, where on the trail rail it states the speed for bikes, that cyclists should slow down near pedestrians, they should keep to the right and pass on the left, and faster bikes should use Highway 101 bike lanes. I'm unaware of any rules and postings that are used on the cycle track, and if they're present, they're not well communicated to all who share these lanes. Are these rules, are bicycle shops sharing these rules with people who might rent bicycles? Are they communicated to the customers or hotels, motels, and Airbnbs who house people who come from out of town aware of these rules? Just some of the questions that came up for me. And also, I do really appreciate the slides that were presented, and I wanted to present another side of that, the asphalt curb markings for the bicycle boundaries cycling north from Solana Beach to Encinitas. What's not seen in those pictures, which I've seen when I cycle, is cars and trucks have swerved into those asphalt lanes when they've been distracted or off course, and the actual asphalt curbs help them go back into the driving lane. And I've seen this more than once, and it's really concerning because it's easy for them to sway into the cycling lanes. So even though there may be, this may not just be a perceived safety, but a real safety. Thank you very much for listening, and I appreciate you all.
Chris Giles, and then Aaron Hebsche.
Hello, my name is Chris Giles. I'm a resident of Encinitas. I am a longtime cyclist, been riding for 40 some odd years. I'm a road cyclist, gravel cyclist, utility e-biker, so kind of have a full breadth of knowledge or disciplines with riding. I've ridden that stretch probably hundreds of times, like you, Ron. And I have never had a problem with any of the curb stops. I have been aware of where they are. I have not had any problems where I am surprised by anything because I'm aware of, what's in front of me and I ride aware. But this isn't about me. This weekend, I went out with, just on Sunday to look at kind of observe what activity was like, what behaviors were like, what kind of riders were out there. Were they sports cyclists? Were they kids? Were they people on cruisers and doing all that? And I wanted to have a objective view of all this because I am subjective because when those things went in, I really appreciated it. I liked it. When I go and ride down to Del Mar and look at the sunset, I come back at night. I like that there is something there that is going to, like the last woman said, if somebody is on their phone or they had too many drinks at the brig, there's something that's going to deter them if they are, veering. I think you showed a picture of the guy who had driven his car over, hit a woman. If I'm not mistaken, he was driving at a very, very high rate of speed, lost control, hit another car, and that's why he was in the bike lane, and that's why he hit her. So yeah, you could say if that was there, if that wasn't, but like that guy, he was going really fast. So I don't know if that's really the best option. And I do know that Sean Wallace, he claimed this is why we need to get rid of the cycle tracks. Because of stuff like that, because this guy hit that woman. Well, he stopped there. If he didn't have that, he probably would have taken her out and gone out in the lagoon. So, I don't know. But I don't have any data to prove yes or no. One thing I do want to bring up is that the city of Encinitas made a sizable investment in putting in these bike lanes. Looking at some other cases and looking at other cities that have removed them, it looks like, and this is rough math, but it looks like about $94 to $100 a linear foot to remove them. So at 6,500 feet for the northbound, you're probably looking at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, and that is on the low end. If you've got to cut those stops out, the cost is probably going to be going up a lot more. And I'm no expert. These guys can tell you. But you're going to be looking at a really big expenditure to make this happen. And the way our city council is approaching things right now, they may not really be on board with such a huge expenditure to deal with this problem. And I think more visible at the start, and then that's going to help the whole situation.
Aaron Hebschi, followed by Marco Gonzalez and Christine Schindler.
Hi, good evening. My name's Aaron Hebschi. I'm Leucadia District 1. This is my daughter Hazel. This is my daughter's friend, and they can't be separated, so I'm sorry I had to drag them both to the meeting tonight. This is a picture of Hazel on the 101. We just pulled off onto the pedestrian path just to take this photo. Hazel, why do you like riding this stretch?
I think it's really pretty. It always smells good. And it's super nice. I don't know what to say. It's and if it weren't there, I feel like we go there a lot, to go down to La Jolla or whatever it's called. Sorry, I keep forgetting. And
maybe Solana Beach.
Yeah, Solana Beach. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. What do you like to do when you get to Solana Beach?
Normally when we get there, we'll past the Cook and either go to VG's Donuts or get a Gelato 101, which is down there, and we'll just walk around, go to the beaches. But without that, we probably wouldn't be able to do that, and we'd just have to drive. So without that bike path, it just makes more driving. Yeah. And if you're trying to prevent that, it's not going to help.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next slide, please. Here's some more friends that use it's great for families. We see, I get a lot of personal reports of my buddies just going down and cruising down. This is my friend Josh and his son Cannon and wife Jen. Next slide. Here's Cannon on that same stretch that we've been talking about. And next slide. I want to address this. On the left side, this is what happens when you don't have barriers separating your bike lane from car lanes. You have vehicles that park in the bike lanes. It diverts vulnerable cyclists into the roadway and puts you at risk. On the right is a vehicle. This is the 56 bike path. This happened several years ago, where a vehicle crashed through the fence and ended up on the bikeway. I think, and look at what it's hard to read it, so I put it in bold at the bottom. It says, cyclists want Caltrans to make paths safer. They didn't say, cyclists want Caltrans to take out the bike path. So next slide, please. There are options to make it safer. There's guardrails, traffic guardrails, there's K-rails, there's things that we can do to actually make this safer. I want to say that I completely agree with you that there are hazards. I want to say that thank you so much for looking at this. And we don't want anybody, whether it's a fast recreational cyclist or little kids, to get hurt on these facilities that we're trying to encourage people to use. So thanks for looking at it. I want to put a plug in to make sure that we're facilitating both for recreational cyclists and for our families so we can all use them. Thank you.
Members of the commission, my name is Marco Gonzalez. I'm an attorney with Coast Law Group. I've been riding bikes for 40 years, from BMX to mountain bikes to e-bikes, commuting. I've ridden from San Francisco to Los Angeles in fundraisers. I spent a lot of time on the road. 5 years ago, when those few people came to support the cycle track, one of them was my daughter at 14 years old. She's 19 now. And she was just starting to ride her e-bike around town and thought, hey, this would be great. Why? Because we have surf team practice sometimes down at Seaside. And it's really sketchy to get down there if we don't have good bike lanes. I grew up in North County. We used to call this the gauntlet. You didn't ride your bike along this stretch at night, and very few people rode their bikes along this stretch during the day other than what I call the spandex army. Now, I rode in those pelotons. I trained a couple hundred miles a week for a lot of years. But it's different. If you truly can't say that putting in that bike lane has radically changed the usage of that road, you're not down there. Because I'm down there almost daily, and I'm telling you, whether it's joggers and strollers being pushed, kids on e-bikes with surfboards going down to Seaside, or beach cruisers or rental e-bikes, it is phenomenally more used than it ever was at any time in the 40 years that I've been riding bikes. And if you don't know that, if you don't see that, I'm sorry, you just don't go down there enough. Go down there on any midsummer's day when the sun's out, it is getting a ton of use. How come these bike crashes don't include kids on e-bikes? Not a single one in that list is some kid being reckless on an e-bike with a surfboard. Why is it always the guy who is, like in that video, I have analyzed that video 100 times. That guy decides he's going to sprint up the hill in the Solana Beach, gets out of the bike lane too late, and hits his pedal on a wheel stop, which turns him back in, and he falls. 100% rider error. And you know what? I saw a guy, I'm in Cardiff Reef parking lot all the time surfing. I see a guy down, I see the ambulance come, and I said, you know what? That old guy didn't take into account the pedestrians who were in his way. He was going too fast, he lost his balance, and he fell. And sure enough, within a couple days, I got a bunch of people online in Serge's Facebook page saying, here it is, it's a cycle track again. No, it was an old dude who wasn't paying attention and was probably going too fast. 99% of the time, the problems that we have are people who are going too fast, not paying attention, perhaps coming home from a bar late at night without a helmet or a light, in the Curry instance, and yes, I know the Curry family as well. It is offensive to the public's right to cycle safety in this city to say that it's the fault of the infrastructure because it is the fault of the rider. Now, to put up a picture of a car that's projected towards the lagoon and say, these safety benefits aren't real because any car could drive over them, that's absurd. It defies logic. Have you ever been driving your car on a road and hit the rumble strip? You rub it, and then it reminds you to get back in. Same thing happens to cars that go along here. We're going to fight you tooth and nail if you try to change it. The only alternative that I would suggest is let's go down to 2 car lanes and make the Class 4 bigger.
Next, we have Christine Schindler, followed by Sabrina Mamo, followed by Julie Thunder.
So Christine Schindler, again, East Encinitas. So Ron, thank you for bringing this and sharing your talk. I would like to encourage you to ask Abe about the greater vision, because when this was first proposed, there was a vision down the road to do a lane reduction, reestablish bike lane, have the cycle track. An update on that or a push toward that would be wonderful. So in my mind, I'm like Chris, an everyday rider. I ride a road bike to an e-bike, pedal assist, never throttle, for many, many different purposes. I don't really ride recreationally anymore. It's all education and transportation. However, I want this stretch to accommodate all bike types, not just the spandex riders. And I do think it has encouraged more use of the corridor in a different way. What I'd love to see is exactly that, lane reduction, maintain the cycle track, reestablish Class 2 bike lanes, and I know there's many other people that want that. I would love us to have pre- and post data, counts, rider types, what has happened. We didn't have that. Love to have that for other projects. Hope that we're going to have that so that we can actually show that the investment of money has made a difference or hasn't made a difference. What else do I want to mention? When you're riding a bike, you're never going to be safe. We don't have metal around us. We're vulnerable road users. But what we hope is that we can make the streets safer for bicyclists, for pedestrians. I really do not like the word, this is kind of like accident and crash. Please don't use accident, use crash. I don't like the word protected. I like separated. It'd be lovely if we could extend the Coastal Rail Trail and have a completely separated Class 1 facility. But that really hasn't been talked about for years and years. And like Marco said, in many of these, slow your roll, wonder about awareness. It's infrastructure and rider. Often for many of these, it's probably not one or the other, it's both. But I think rider responsibility and rider error does play into it. But people are getting hurt, and we don't want people getting hurt. And we want more people to ride their bikes more frequently and replace car trips for public health, for environment, for loving our community in a different way. So thank you.
Hello. My name is Sabrina Mammo. I'm a licensed traffic engineer. I am actually speaking on behalf of APBP. We had awarded the city of Encinitas with a wonderful bike infrastructure, acknowledging the expansive work you guys have done for this community. And it is so unfortunate to see the results and the statistics and the fatalities. And we always ask ourselves, what could we have done better? Did we plan this out right? I will tell you, as a traffic engineer, I've designed bike lanes, and the biggest problem that a lot of traffic engineers, I would say, do not consider speeds of bikes, the grades of roads, the horizontal vertical alignments, and how that affects the user. I have been talking about it. We are now starting to really start to learn how to design bike lanes, because that wasn't a priority in America. That was a priority in Europe. That was a priority in other places, and now it's starting to become a really big trend. We want to always encourage improvement, but we also want to not shift the narrative between cyclists and bollards to cyclists versus cars. Because now when we shift the narrative, say, well, put the bike lane back next to the cars. Well, now we are worried about Encinitas drivers, and we know Encinitas is on the map for top 10 microbreweries in the world. I didn't know that. I read it, and I was like, that's something to seriously consider. And when you see these little girls, they're like, you know, and I want them to have safe places to ride their bikes. I'm also not saying those, you know, little bollard stops are great either. I think near high speeds, having very small fixed objects are extremely dangerous. I will admit that too. So I just want the committee to reconsider. APBP has looked into this. We've read the reports. We are understanding of everyone's side. But let's make sure we do not focus the narrative on putting, you know, cars versus, you know, cyclists. That's not always the answer. But definitely looking into adjusting the barrier, whether that's rumble strips, whether that's raised reflective pavement markings. Be obsessive about it. There's a lot of places that put 50, 100, you know, raised pavement markings all along that buffered area per like 50 feet. I mean, no one's shy about it. They're easy to install and low maintenance. Thank you.
Next, we have Julie Thunder, followed by Travis Newhouse, and then Serge Isakov.
Hi again. I live in Cardiff, and I literally drive, walk, or bike that section from Cardiff to Solana Beach every day. And I've seen everything. One of the pictures you showed, I think, was mine, that I happened to be driving by, and when I was stopped, I was able to take a quick picture of that accident. And a lot of the comments here about the increased users there are right. I see families there, and I was one of the strong opponents, but now I've softened on that, and I see that this is where we're going. So what can we do to make it safer? I think what Commissioner Maddox said makes a lot of sense, to remove the curbs. With the curbs, a cyclist has no way, and I'm not talking about the spandex set. I know we're not supposed to say that anymore. I don't know what to say. I'm talking about recreational users that choose to take the cycle track because they don't want to drive or ride out in the road. They have nowhere to go when walkers are in the cycle track, which happens all summer long. This is walkers in the cycle track.
Julie, I can put it on the, if you want.
You have that. Oh, great. That would be great. This is all summer long. The cycle track is not just for bikes. I mean, I know it's supposed to be, but it's not used that way. So if the curbs were removed and there was a safe buffer, I'm not advocating to get rid of the access, 100%. But if the curbs were removed, anybody, including a kid with a surfboard on his e-bike, can get around a walker without crashing into the curb. It just offers more flexibility, which makes sense. Let's just help this make sense. The other thing I'd like to point out is this stretch of road is very unique in Encinitas for Coast Highway. It's the one section of Coast Highway that has a view on both sides of the ocean and the lagoon, and people are as fascinated with the lagoon when you're northbound as they are with the beach when you're southbound. Driving down in either way, you have drivers and cyclists and walkers doing surf checks, watching boats, watching windsurfers, watching pelicans and ospreys, whales and dolphins, girls in bikinis rollerblading by. There's a lot of distractions. So it's imperative that we get this right and that we make it more safe. I'm not saying any of those crashes were due to distraction, but I do want to remind you that one of the crashes in that list is a 10-year-old boy who crashed and was ejected out onto the roadway. His father was with him. He ended up fine. He had injuries, but I believe he's fine today. But the important thing is to make it safe, and I commend Commissioner Maddox in bringing these ideas to us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Travis Newhouse, Encinitas resident. I walk, I bike along this section and all around our city.
I want to thank Commissioner Meddock for bringing this issue up to improve the safety along this stretch of road. Looks like you put a lot of time and effort into this report. I agree we can make it safer, and I think we should. I think this area is one of the most amazing pieces of coastline in our city, so we should make it possible for as many people to enjoy it on foot and bike and not just speed through it in their car. So how can we do that? I like the idea that we need to have more data. I think that was brought up even during the planning session today, and we don't have enough data before and after these went in. It would be great to have cycle counts, number of users that are using this to correlate with the accident data. It would be great to start keeping track of this, the number of people that are walking, the number of people are biking, and whether they're using the Sharrows or the cycle track, so that we can actually make more informed decisions going forward. I think this report offers one solution, but I don't think it's the only alternative that should be considered. We want to make sure we can support all active users, whether they want to go quickly through this area, whether they want to cycle leisurely, or whether they want to walk. And I believe what we've seen, and even in the last slides that Ms. Thunder shared, the cycle tracks actually have created more space for pedestrians that to meet the demand. I mean, there's a lot of people that like to walk along this area. You'll often see that the narrow DG path or sand-covered path is not really wide enough for people to walk, especially when they're going both directions and if they have more than one person with them. So they often spill over into cycle track. We shouldn't take that away. In fact, we should just make more space for people to ride their bikes. And I think that's possible if we reduce this down to 2 lanes, keep the cycle track there as a protected area, a separated area, but also add a bike lane and just reduce the amount of space for cars. Already parts of 101, such as south of Swami's, are only 2 lanes for cars. We don't need 4 lanes throughout this entire section. Let people enjoy it on foot and on bike with fresh air. So I'd like to just kind of share that one alternative, and I hope you guys will consider that or others as you try to improve this and make it safer for everyone. Thank you.
Next, we have Serge Isakov, followed by Sean Wallace and Steve Linke.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Serge Isakov. Thank you very much for letting me speak. A lot of my points have already been covered. I want to emphasize one thing, though, about the victim blaming that's been talked about. A few years ago, I was riding northbound in the bikeway, and I heard a car coming, and it felt too close, too dangerous or something, and I took a moment to look back over my shoulder, and I saw everything was fine. But then, right in front of me, one of those barriers was coming at me. And I didn't crash, I barely made it, but at that moment, I understood how these people are crashing. It's not that they're not looking. They can get distracted by almost anything. So when you're just looking at these obstacles and you're going, how could somebody run into that, Marco? Come on. But it's something else is going on. Maybe they're thinking about a fight they just had with somebody. Maybe, who knows what's going on? The guy who hit the pole over there, he was sweeping behind the group, and something got his attention. And we can't put things right in the path of where everybody is riding. That's the problem with this design, and there are so many people who ride here. People say, oh, you're just thinking about yourself and your spandex buddies. Well, I'm fine. I'm not thinking about me. I just take the lane. I don't care. When we ride in our groups, we take the lane. This isn't for me. I'm a cycling safety advocate. I'm trying to get people to not die and go to the hospital. That's my concern, just because they're riding a bike. It shouldn't be a death penalty. So this is a valiant effort, and I really appreciate what Abe did in this design, given the requirements the council gave him. He did as good a job as anybody could do, I'm sure. But this isn't the right place with the available space right now for the design that's in there and for the amount of use that it gets. It's just, we couldn't cram it all in there. Long term, yes, we need to go to the Coastal Commission and try to get a lane reduction and all that kind of stuff. But that's long term. In the short term, what Ron is proposing here, I believe, is the way to go. And it's way better. It's not going back. It is way, way better. It would be one of the best bike lanes anywhere in the county because it would be so wide, buffers on both sides. It would still be safe for the little girls that were here earlier, and they would still have the view and everything. It really captures everything that we need. And I urge you to really look at this, although I admit the costs are, if that's true, if those costs that were mentioned are true about taking it out, that's I didn't realize that it would maybe cost that much. So good luck with that. Thank you.
Can I bring some of these over here? Somebody talk from over here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're in order?
Yeah.
Are they in order?
Yes, yeah, they're in order. Yeah, just a second.
Let me know.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sean Wallace. I'm a 27-year resident of Encinitas, long-time bicycle advocate. And okay, so we've got the first picture up, and this shows the problem with what 5 years ago with the changes were made. The main problem is that the Class 2 bike lane got removed. I've no problem with these separated bike lanes, but most cyclists, as we see today, prefer to use a Class 2 bike lane along this section. So what happened here when the cars were moved out, you can see a lot of people there in the bike lane. Those are the pedestrians. So the cyclists got pushed out into the roadway. Abe, do you want to keep going through? There we go. Another section here, we're seeing this is when people go to the beach and they're unloading their bags. And the cyclists know this is going to be there. And so this is why most cyclists are not able to use it. Abe? Thank you. Another problem, they trap sand. So this part is totally unrideable. Please. So because of that, then what has happened now is that the cyclists are out in the roadway in the number 2 lane. They don't want to be there. I can assure you that. You may see a lot of cyclists there, and I'm more than anyone, as much as anyone, comfortable riding with traffic, but I don't want to be in that number 2 lane. But for me, it's become the safer option. Please. And this is include young kids. These young girls, they don't want to be out there in the number 2 lane. They want to be in a bike lane, a Class 2 buffered bike lane. So let's go back to 2017. This is how it was at that time. I'm not saying this is ideal. That's a rather narrow bike lane. If you want to go for the next one. And this is how it is now. And the main thing that you see here is the cyclists there are in the number 2 lane. Again, they don't want to be there. Okay. So if the furniture was removed, this is what you would get. The cyclists are now over in the buffered bike lane. The cars are not driving along, because we've got to think of car drivers too. A lot of people drive around. They're not villains. We all drive our cars. They're not driving along in the number 2 lane and all of a sudden have slow-going cyclists in front of them. The cyclists don't want to be there. The car drivers don't want them in front of them. Okay, you can go on. So I did go through and had a look at, or gave some thought to how it would affect the different class groups if the obstacles were removed. For the cyclists, I can assure you they would all immediately take to riding in the Class 2 bike lane, the buffered bike lane. They could pass each other. They wouldn't be crashing into the bollards and wheel stops because they wouldn't be there. I'm going to run out of time here. Motorists too, they're going to get that number 2 lane back. I know ideally that we'll have a lane or road diet there, but they're going to benefit too. Also benefiting are going to be pedestrians who will be able to once again walk on the side of the road, and also people who just like the look. It's time that we got back to beautifying Encinitas coast.
Next we have Steve Linke, followed by Judy Burlfine with time donation from Dodla Ponasil. And then Ted DeFrank.
Thank you. Steve Linke, former Carlsbad Traffic Commissioner. I'm going to talk about a slightly different topic. It's still related to the bollards and the curb stops, but this is the area with a bunch of restaurants and offices. But there are many driveways in this area, and the curbs and the bollards at each driveway have to stop, and you want a safe gap for the vehicle drivers to be able to take the bike lane when they make their right turns. But curbs and bollards with high densities of driveways and intersections are a dangerous mix. Next slide, please. All right, so the California Manual on Uniform Control Devices has some guidelines on the stripe length. So when you have a bike lane, a Class 2 bike lane, you want a minimum of 50 feet of a dashed area where the vehicle will go to the right before they take a right turn, so they avoid doing a right hook on a cyclist. But where speeds are greater than 35 miles an hour, it's 200 feet is the recommendation. It appears that this area with the restaurants, the speed limit is around 35. So unfortunately, can you go to the next slide, please? So here I'm showing there's a 50-foot, and so I think those meet the MUTCD guideline, going southbound into Charthouse or going northbound into Keys or Keys, I don't know how you pronounce that. There's an office complex there too where it's really only about 20 feet. And next slide, please. So here's a view going southbound towards the Charthouse driveway, and you can see that last bollard and curb there, and the red line shows where the driveway is. So there's just 50 feet there for a car to merge in there, which creates a danger for cyclists. Next slide, please. And this is on the other side going northbound. That red line is the office, the driveway into the office, and the orange line is going into the restaurant. But that office one is only 20 feet after that bollard and curb there. So it's just not, to me, a safe area for cars to be able to merge in and avoid cyclists. Next slide, please. And here's the signs that went up. I think it's insufficient. Vehicles aren't going to see that and understand it necessarily, that they need to yield to bikes, and they're not as visible in the cycle track. Okay, next slide. All right, so in conclusion, I would just say, in these areas with high densities of driveways and intersections, I know we in Carlsbad, our commission have voted against putting cycle tracks in when you have these areas with high densities of driveways and intersections, and I would urge you, if you do nothing else here, to remove them or extend the right turn areas next to these driveways. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Judy Burlfine, and first I want to thank Commissioner Medoc. We've had some good conversations for your team for the hard work you've done compiling the data. And second, I want to state that all injuries are bad and that my heart goes out to the injured and the families of those injured. And sometimes it feels like when you talk about these numbers, you're sounding callous, and that's the last thing I want to do. So the problem with life is that as much as we want a perfect solution to all our problems, all we really have is a cost-benefit analysis. So what are the benefits of Commissioner Medoc's proposal? Removing the cycle track would provide benefit to those who like to ride fast, 15 or 20 miles per hour. It would be easier to pass each other, and there would be no physical barriers. Well, I consider myself to be an 8 to 80 rider, a slower rider. I can understand that this would really work well for those who prefer to ride faster. And what are the costs? Chris alluded to them. What other important projects do we need this $500 to $1 million to put that money into? We have drainage problems, we have paving issues, we want to hire more law enforcement. So what are the trade-offs if we use this money to pull this out? What else are we not doing? And then the more personal cost. What is the cost to me or to Hazel and her friend? If we pull this out, I probably won't be riding to Solana Beach or Keys or Seaside Beach or Claire's anymore. And then, as other people have alluded to, what crashes have we prevented that we don't know about? How many, it isn't either you drive perfectly straight or you fly off the road. There are lots of in-betweens there. And so how many people have tapped those wheel stops and woken up or looked up from their phone and not hit me or other families riding there? Really hard to tell. So my motto is improve, don't remove. And how do we do that? Lots of people have made suggestions. Here are some of my ideas. I want to empower those who are currently working on improving this. I think Abe has met with Christine and Sean and a few other people. Maybe we form a subcommittee to look at all the options before we do anything drastic. One of the things that you and I talked about, Commissioner Meddock, is slowing the traffic down on 101, perhaps with speed tables, with more law enforcement. And I think if the traffic actually respected the speed limit, I believe it's 30 miles per hour. If the cars were going 30 miles per hour, the fast cyclists would feel much more comfortable using the Sharrows. And I don't think this will go over well with many people, but part of the issue that I see when I looked at the data from the crash list is that people are weaving in and out, and those are not designed for that. So if we're going to keep the barriers there, we need to make them continuous, because people have this illusion that they can go in and out, and that's when they're running into them. I want to look more closely at the injury data. Based on the 101 crash list, almost 70% of those crashes occurred in 2020 during construction and when the cycle track was initially installed. So there was a real learning curve at the beginning, and things have improved. There have been far fewer incidents since then. And there's lots of ways to look at the data. I looked at the 3.3 years before the cycle track was installed and the 4.9 years after, and we're looking at 3.3 serious injuries per year before and 3.8 after. I'll draw whatever conclusions. And one other piece of information that I was able to come across, the ridership there has in fact increased. Sandag has data showing it's increased by 10%. The average bike counts for Cardiff Highway 101 for the 4 years since the cycle track has been put in are 416,000 per year, compared to 378,000 in the 4 years pre-cycle track. And they also have video data from 2024 that shows that 72% of riders are using the cycle track as opposed to the Sharrows. So for many people, that's a preferred use. I want to end by saying those are the numbers and the facts, and they do no justice to the stories, to the experiences kids and big kids like myself have when we enjoy riding on 101. I moved to North County in 1983, and I used to ride my bike from Del Mar to Leucadia, where I worked as a waitress at the Old Time Cafe. Then I had kids, and I stopped riding. The road was too busy. The cars went too fast. Once I snuck onto the closed road during a cycling race so I could enjoy the magnificent ocean view from my bike without cringing every time a car sped by me. When they built the cycle track, I was able to return to this precious location. I hope I can continue to enjoy the most beautiful piece of real estate that Encinitas has to offer from the vantage point of my bike far into the future. Thank you.
Next, we have Ted DeFrank, followed by Molly Hintlian. Oh.
Good evening. One thing about going towards the end is everyone already said basically everything I'm going to say. So, cyclists, ride up and down, runner, walker, all that. I don't envy what you guys are trying to do. I'm on various boards and councils and things, and you can't appease everyone. It's impossible. There's no ideal solution. So I appreciate the work you guys do trying to make things better, right? That's what we're all here for. The one point I would say, I did ride on Saturday on that bike trail part just to see what it was really like. And it reaffirmed kind of my conception of it. When I'm in the spandex army, I ride the Sharrow. And I never ride the bike lane right around the restaurants where he was pointing out there's just too many ins and outs. But I'm also a grandfather now, so be able to take grandkids. They're not, I'd rather have them ride their bikes on the, the official bike, I missed my language, the bicycle track, sorry, thank you. So I see the advantage. We're trying to solve a lot of problems with like one solution. That's why I don't envy you. Runners, they don't like the walkers, so they hop in the bike lane, right? Bike lane, the bikers don't like the runners because they're in the way. Both of them feel they deserve it. Every once in a while it gets a little crazy. So I don't know what's an easy solution. I do agree when the gaps are too large, some cyclists think maybe when they were younger they could do that, go in and out, but they can't. And as soon as they think that they can do that, so to me it's either in or you're out. And to think you're going to jump in between is just dangerous. And those green little ballard things, I hate those things. I had someone run into one once, and yeah, they're forgiven, but he still broke his clavicle. But anyway, I appreciate what you guys are trying to do. It's not easy. Thank you, and good luck trying to keep all of us happy.
That concludes public speakers, but we do have Molly Hintlian, who doesn't wish to speak, but is in support of the item.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate all the feedback. Do any of the commissioners want to make some comments?
Commissioner Maddock, thank you for putting that together, and thanks to everyone that spoke. As a lot of people said, I think we're stuck in a hard place where we're trying to keep people as safe as possible and prevent, ideally, often prevent the worst case outcomes that could possibly happen. So I think in the United States, roughly 70% of people that die on bicycles die at the hands of cars. And roughly 1,300 people a year die on a bicycle in the United States. So that's roughly 900 people are killed by cars. 400 are killed in other ways. So there's no question cycling is inherently can be dangerous, but it does seem like the biggest challenge on the road for cyclists is cars. And so the more that we can do to separate the people from the, provide a safe place so that cars can't do the type of things. Even your data shows we haven't had an issue yet where a car has killed anyone, which I think is commendable with the amount of people that we know are in there. I look at that area as Encinitas it's our central park. It's our Golden Gate Park. It's the most beautiful place in the world. And the photos, I know we're using those photos to maybe illustrate challenges, but it's beautiful. There's people everywhere, right? That used to be just the highway, and now it's a place where families go and everyone hangs out. And, so we have this tremendous challenge where to speak to what the city council has asked us, hey, we want to focus more maybe on circulation. Those photos are beautiful photos of circulation where you have people of all creeds and all modes moving. And there will inherently be injuries. We know that mobility is a dangerous thing. But I will say I think those and again it's not we don't have the data necessarily. And a lot of people spoke to that too to say, oh well, has that prevented anyone from a car from killing anyone? We don't know that, right? But it's great to see that no car has killed anyone, even as we've increased the amount of people there. So I think that's important. And then to your data, I just want to, I appreciate how you pointed out, hey, this is not apples to apples, this is apples to oranges. I do think we need to be a little careful there when we start to bring in anecdotal data from Facebook groups or other areas. I think it's very good to represent those, but I think it can be challenging to then try to lump that data together to make a point where, if we're going to use Switter's data, we should use Switter's data throughout. We shouldn't add Facebook data to Twitter's data and only have it for a certain time period. And so I think we need to be careful on that. And I think that's just something that we can be mindful of in trying to still tell our story and also tell the anecdotes, which I think are really, really important to tell. So just something I wanted to point out. And then again, the more data that we can have on the increase in ridership, and not just ridership, I think it's really important that we point out the number of pedestrians that are now using that area versus before, because that is a mode shift. That's something as a city we're trying to circulate people, allow people to hang out in those areas, enjoy the views. Again, the most beautiful park that we have. I think it's just really important that we have that. And then as much as possible it's great to see the younger people speaking for, the city they want to live in. They're often not represented at city council meetings. They're often not represented in our meetings. So it's great to see the kids out here because they have a voice, even though we don't often hear from them. So it's great that we got a little bit of that today.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Medak, thank you for presenting that information. And everyone who spoke here tonight, we can see the passion and enthusiasm of everyone. And that's what I think Commissioner Gross said it well. It's a special place in our city. And so for me, I heard a lot about accessibility to everyone. And there was a speaker towards the end who said he was sometimes part of the spandex army. And I think possibly I would consider myself one of those most of the time when I'm riding. And I think the speed, I'm not saying I ride too fast anymore, but I would prefer to use a Shero. And so one of the things that I think we're obligated to do is to educate everybody who's going to use that stretch of highway and any other roadway. But I think we can refer. We have a mobility manager that's doing a very good job, and I think if we can come up with a plan that will help people understand if you're going to go inside the track, you can't ride 30 miles an hour because it's too difficult. And there's other people that are going to be using that pathway. But I think it is powerful to hear the younger people talk about riding their bikes down to get a donut. And that's, kind of what we're all kind of striving for. I think, everybody should have access to that part of roadway. If you're going to swerve in and out of the bollards, you got to slow down, and if you choose to do that, you better be ready to swerve to do that. Admittingly, I've done that a few times, but we just need to educate everybody and have it accessible to all. Thanks.
Commissioner Duncan?
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Maddock, great presentation, and thank you for all the time. And you bring up, some good issues that I think just are good to put out there and have this conversation. And nothing's perfect, from what I heard. I think, what could we do better, balancing cost and everything, right? I think education in the form of signs, again, almost like with the roundabouts. I mean, I don't want to see our town filling up with all these signs, but simple signage that says, pedestrians over here and bikes here, and bikes can share the lane. But I think that's a great thing about Encinitas or the Sheros. We have them all over now, so I wouldn't want to see us get rid of them here. My spandex army, I queried them all, about a dozen guys, and not one wanted to see any changes. No biker has a problem being in a Shero now. So I think the protected lane is great for the recreational weekend riders, kids, and everything. So I like that separation. I think we just need maybe better signage about what's what for what people at those entry points. The biggest area I feel of any concern or issue is I think it was Steve that showed it, the kind of the restaurant row. And if there is a way maybe more affordably there to at least remove some of those barriers that keep cars from pulling in too soon because they got to get in really quick. I mean, again, we're in an area where we're fortunate enough, people are pretty aware of all the bicyclists and stuff, and we got plenty of right turn lanes where they're dashed and bikes and cars have to share it. And, let's give them a little bit more room in some of those entry points for those businesses along that section where maybe that's where we look at removing some things. But other than that, I just, I think what we have is pretty good. Is it perfect? No. But, bringing up the topic and having this conversation is a good thing.
Anyone else?
Okay. Commissioner Johnson here. I'm not a bicyclist, and I've said before that you'll never catch me on a bicycle in Encinitas. The motorists are the reason for this. And I look at this beach area, and it's a wonderful area. It's underutilized, actually, for recreation or whatever. And why do we have 4 lanes of cars? Why don't we just take the cars down to 2 lanes and use some of the rest of that space for some of it for parking and some of it for other beach-type attractions like surfboard rentals? The speakers we've had have all been very, very concerned, and we're on all sides of it. There's no one consensus that I can get from this group of people. Maybe we should form a task force or a committee or something to further look at the alternatives. Given the nature of our budget, anything we decide is probably not going to happen for another 3 or 4 years anyway. So let's look at the plan, see what it's going to be, and do it right this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I know, excuse me, wow. I know Ron and his team spent a lot of time, as we've already heard, looking at the data and talking about the data and trying to really come up with something that was apples to apples. But based on the feedback from Abe, maybe it's worth looking at this data with a more expert look to really convince ourselves one way or another whether there's a real increase in fatalities and accidents because of this change. If the data is available, I think that would be worthwhile doing. That said, one of the things that I've learned as I've sort of dug into this a little bit is that, the accidents, when they happen, they're not when you're going down a bike route or on the street per se. They're when cars are turning and people are turning. And so definitely the areas near the restaurants and the buildings with cars where there's turning is really the area that we should be focusing on, because I suspect that's where most of the car-induced accidents are happening. Because let's face it, when you're in a car, you don't see people in bikes and pedestrians as well as you see another car. You don't see them as well. I think the issue that Ron's raising, which I don't know that we really know the answer to, but based on his data indicates, is that it's not that the cars are injuring people, it's the bollards and those curbs are. And if that's true, we should do something about it. So again, I think if we have the data, we should look at it maybe in a more consolidated way. It sounds like Abe has access to that data. And if there is a real problem there, we should do something about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
One more anecdotal story on, learning about not having data on things that don't happen. I'm not sure if anyone heard, last week there was a drunk driver on Leucadia Boulevard at Neptune. If you know Beacons Beach, the driver went straight instead of turning right on a Neptune straight and plowed through 3 cars and almost hit a surfer. The surfer had to remove her from the vehicle because she had her foot on the pedal. If those 3 cars aren't there, she goes over the cliff at Beacons, destroys the Beacons trails, and kills the people below her. So those are the stories you don't hear when you do have protected things in place. because they actually do provide protection. That story, I don't think it was reported by anyone, but there was police and, there's definitely a collision report. Those sorts of things often can happen, and, again, we don't know what the tragedy would have been if it wasn't there. So I do think that needs to be represented.
Okay, just trying to summarize a little bit, I did hear multiple times that people would like to, see some data. So I'm wondering if that's a request that we could make as we move this project forward.
Yes, Chair, I sure can. I do believe last year or the year before we did present something similar to Commissioner City Council. I can revisit the database and bring a more updated collision history for the commission if you want to look at the collisions that were recorded there.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. The other thing that someone suggested is a subcommittee. So I'm just wondering what people think about getting a subcommittee together, like 2 or 3 people to discuss this in greater detail. Okay, we'll nix that.
I guess we're questioning what does the data say? Do we even need to be addressing this or not?
Yeah, okay. Maybe just hold off until we get the data. Okay, very good. Okay, with that, anything else anyone wants to bring up this evening? Okay, meeting is adjourned, and we'll see you all in a week.